A girl sat on top of a boy, smoking. The boy slowly woke up, feeling dizzy. She stared at him for a moment, then leaned closer with a laugh, saying he was finally awake. The red-haired boy looked around in shock, wondering where he was and what kind of situation this was. Alarmed, he jumped out of bed. She mocked him, asking if the drug's effect had already worn off and saying she had heard people were more interesting when awake. That was when he realized he had been reincarnated. 300 years ago, he had accidentally entered the fairy world on Mount Kinkang, starting his cultivation path. For centuries, he trained without rest, becoming a sword cultivator. He remembered reaching his goal, but in the end, he failed to achieve the eternal realm. Instead, he opened a space-time corridor that sent him back to Earth, into his body at 17. He still didn't know who the woman was or what she wanted. She smiled and called him dear, telling him not to be shy and to come back to bed. Feeling awkward, he put on his robe and said there had been a misunderstanding, then announced he would leave. She stood up, introduced herself as Yicheng Exi, and said she would not let him go, claiming he should consider himself lucky to see her. He ignored her and walked to the door. She didn't like that. She rushed forward, grabbed his arm, and he realized how strong she was. He pulled away, and energy appeared in his hands. She recognized who he was. While he noticed this body had no energy at all, she released her own power, sending him flying. He saw his school uniform, grabbed it, and ran. Smoking, she commented that he might escape for now, but that her great white horse wouldn't get away from her. Outside, he looked at the city. It had been 300 years, but now he was back on Earth. He thought about his father, mother, and brother, happy that he could see them again. Nearby, a woman complained that the man with her was overreacting about a bag. She crossed her arms and said she would buy it for them today. Her boyfriend hugged her, calling her kind. Watching, the boy became thoughtful. Someone told him to move, and he saw a muscular woman carrying 2 cement bags. He noticed other women working in construction. Shocked, he thought people here had changed a lot since he left. Later, in the library of an educational institution, he read about the spring and autumn period. A disaster had changed women's bodies, making them stronger and smarter. Kong Mo had created a version of Confucianism that placed women above men. This shift ended with the emperor giving the throne to the princess. In the 21st century, the idea remained, with women still seen as superior. In this world, when a man divorced, it was said that he was divorced, and women normally pursued men. Closing the book, he said it was ridiculous that women ruled over men, though that was simply how things worked now. He wasn't even sure if his own family followed that rule. At home, his father, Lin Yantu, was cleaning when the boy entered. Excited, the boy hugged him. Lin said he thought his son was still at school, then sniffed his hair and asked if he had met a woman. He warned that it was dangerous for someone as handsome as him to go out without caution. Holding a newspaper, Lin mentioned a case where a 15-year-old girl got into trouble after trusting a classmate, saying that this could ruin his son's future. The boy didn't understand. Lin also complained that his daughter spent all day gaming at a third-rate university with no job, so only the boy had any hope for success. The boy said he understood and told his father not to worry, then asked where his mother was. Lin sighed and said she was still negotiating business, and with the company doing badly, times were hard. Wanting to get out of the situation, the redhead says it's time to eat and that he'll call his sister. With no hesitation, he starts opening the door. Inside, his sister is awake, watching something on her computer. This is Xu Xiao, telling the streamer to hurry up and take off his clothes. She types a stream of adult comments in the chat, a box of wet tissues beside her. The protagonist shuts the door immediately. Embarrassed, he wonders what is going on, and if this could be a dream. Suddenly, he yells loudly, startling his sister, who jumps from her chair. Annoyed, she asks what his problem is. She walks out wearing some kind of med gum, arms crossed, glaring at him. Awkwardly, he says it's time to eat and asks if she was watching an adult movie. She smirks, saying those don't work anymore, that live streams are better, and that she was watching a muscular guy performing for the audience. She adds that this sort of thing isn't for boys like him. Humming, she wanders around the house, looking relaxed. He can only laugh at her answer. Later, as the day ends, his sister says she's going out to dinner with friends and will be back later. She asks their father for 1,000 yen. Annoyed, the old man asks why. She says it's for her night out. He gets irritated, telling her to study instead, adding that if she were half as good as her brother, they'd worry less. With the money in hand, she asks why she should be like him, claiming he only uses women. She says she'll be quiet because he might marry a rich woman someday. She leaves while her father tells her not to spend it all. Curious, the protagonist asks if it's really fine to let her go. Eating an apple, his father says she's a woman and can't be controlled like him. Women always have to work and earn money, but admits her attitude is bad. The boy realizes this really is an upside-down world. At that moment, his mother arrives home. Missing her, he runs to hug her. Surprised, she asks what's going on and if he hasn't already received her gift. gift. Then she hands him some money. He remembers how in the past he'd beg for just 21 yen to go to the internet cafe, but now she gives him money so easily. He tries to give it back, but she tells him to keep it, saying their business may be struggling, but she won't let that affect him, especially his studies. He's her pride. Changing the subject, she asks about their daughter Choo-Choo. Still irritated, his father says she should speak to her since she just left. Getting a glass of water, the mother says Choo-Choo is wasting time, but will figure things out eventually. Her husband agrees. The protagonist, still shocked, thinks that even knowing this is a reversed world, seeing his parents act like this is uncomfortable. His mother hugs his father, saying he's right, and that men have it easy, while women have to work harder, so they should let Choo-Choo continue until she learns. The boy finds the whole scene unpleasant and goes to his room. Inside, he notices the room has a feminine style. He wonders if it's really his. In this society, families prefer daughters, leading to a huge imbalance. Millions of women remain single. Women looking for a good husband must own a house and a car, and handsome men are actively pursued. Smiling confidently, he thinks his looks make him a prime catch. Opening a drawer, he finds several sealed love letters. Surprised, he realizes he's the school's most desired boy. Lying on the bed, he calls it a curse and decides to focus on cultivation so he can leave this world. He notices the aura here is strong enough to restore his training and lost skills. His goal is to open the space-time corridor and return home. He tells himself he can't wait any longer. Night falls, and after practicing the Golden Freedom Jaido, his senses sharpen. Confident, he decides to act. He senses his parents asleep, but wonders where his sister is. Remembering that in this world women stay out late without issue, he still feels uneasy and calls her. She answers, screaming for him to listen. On her knees, restrained by two women, she says she's in trouble. She tells him there's a black bag under her bed and to bring it to the Crescent Bar on High Street. Taking the phone, a blue-haired woman says that if he wants his sister safe, he must deliver the bag to room 302. He agrees without hesitation. Early morning, he leaves through the window, saying no one should touch his family. Using his past skills, he moves quickly across rooftops until he reaches the Crescent Bar. Inside room 302, he sees his sister calling for him. He throws the black bag onto the table, telling them to let her go. The leader crosses her arms, saying his face is even better than in the photos, and asks his age. He tells her it's none of her business. Irritated, she looks at the bag, opens it, and finds a large sum of money. Shocked, his sister asks why there's money inside. The boy wonders if she really didn't know. By his estimate, it's at least $1 million. Desperate, the girl calls out to her brother Joe, insisting she didn't know there was money in the bag and that Xiaola only asked her to hold it for a while. The blue-haired woman cuts her off, telling her to shut up. She accuses Lin of daring to take her place and steal her money, then tells the girl to leave before she changes her mind. Shaken, the girl hugs her brother, but before they can go, the blue-haired woman stops them and asks who said her brother could leave. Calm but cold, the girl knew it wouldn't be that simple. Smirking, the woman says the boy is young and handsome, so while she's fine with letting the girl go, he must stay. Xiaola snaps that she won't allow them to touch him. She tells Joe not to involve his siblings in this and urges him to let them leave. The woman laughs, saying Xiaola should be the one to stay. Smiling maliciously, she tells her she can either leave or work hard here. Without hesitation, Xiaola says she'll stay. She tells her brother to go home, saying it's unsafe for a man here and that she'll handle it. Moving her arm aside, Zhou asks if she thinks he has no sense of honor. Hands in his pockets, he asks Xiao if she even wants him here. They lock eyes. With a twisted smile, the woman calls him a brat and asks if he wants to die. Warning she'll drag him to bed and torture him in every way possible. The protagonist doesn't reply. He just slaps her across the face. His sister Wai Ying is stunned. Furious, Zhou charges to punch him, but he blocks, and they trade blows before stepping back. The fight begins. The boy smiles, saying this is getting interesting, noting how powerful women are in this world. With his hand hurt, Zhou orders the women to attack. He tells them to go all out if they can. Leaping high, the boy dodges and counters, using a whirlwind-like physical technique. Within seconds, everyone is on the floor. He says it's over and tells them to leave. As they move toward the door, a sound stops them. They turn to see the girl aiming a gun, warning that if they take another step, she'll shoot. She asks if they think they're faster than bullets. Her brother steps forward, telling Joe to let it go and forgive him. Still seething, the woman curses, saying it doesn't matter. She'll kill him right here. Holding foam in his hand, the protagonist says she's the one asking for it. A voice from the side laughs, calling the scene interesting. A smoking woman steps forward, asking why she wasn't invited. Looking closely, the boy realizes it's the same ex-inking he met before. He instantly feels uneasy, remembering their last meeting, and asks why she's here. She laughs, saying the place belongs to her. She tells Joe she'll take over from here and that she should should leave. Joe calls her crazy and accuses her of breaking the rules. Woo's eyes turn murderous as she asks what she means. Then she orders her guards to take Joe away, cut off her hands and feet, and throw her out. Horrified, the blue-haired woman falls to the floor, trembling and crying, begging for mercy. The smoking woman relents, saying to cut off only one hand and one foot. She turns to the protagonist, smiling, and says it's a gift for him, asking if he likes it. Surprised, Woo asks if she's actually being nice to him. Kong replies gently that he's the first to speak to her this way, and that he's different from the others. Laughing, she says she's decided. He will be her 36th boyfriend. He pushes her hand away, saying he's not interested and can take care of himself. Q Shang wonders aloud who would want to be someone's 36th boyfriend. The woman mocks him, saying he's just a small-bodied man who could be one of Joe's women at night. The boy asks if she really thinks that, and if she dares compare her strength to his. Terrified, his sister whispers if he's lost his mind, asking how he could compare himself to a woman like her. Yi asks if Kong is full of herself. He challenges her, saying if he wins, she has to stop bothering him. She asks if he's forgotten he's a man. With a smirk, he asks why she's so afraid. Still, the woman introduces herself as Shen Kaxi, asserting that there's nothing she can't do. However, she adds that she also has a condition. If she wins, he will become her boyfriend. Without thinking twice, the boy accepts. Sometime later, the two are facing each other on a stage. A trio of women begins commenting on the duel, and one of them says that if it were her, she'd want to play with the boy until the end while her friends laugh in. Hearing all this, the protagonist reflects that, in this world, women truly are strong and see men as insignificant beings. Smiling, the girl tells Joe she'll make him understand the vast gap between men and women, a gap as wide as heaven and earth. They then decide to start the arm wrestling match. With a confident smile, the woman begins to emit some kind of supernatural energy. Struggling, he realizes she's very strong and that the women of this world are truly extraordinary. However, he changes his expression, declaring that he is no ordinary human. Woo, for her part, notices the boy's change, and then he quickly defeats her in the arm wrestling match, leaving her completely stunned. After the duel ends, he reminds her that he won and that she must not forget their bet. Afterward, the protagonist grabs his sister's arm and they leave together while everyone comments on what just happened. Having lost the duel to a man, Woo is furious. One of the guards approaches, saying she'll go after him, but receives only a slap from her boss. Angrily, Woo tells her to shut up, claiming that she hasn't lost yet. From the stage, she calls out to Q-Ting, saying that he surprised her, but that he shouldn't forget that a man like him is destined to take care of a woman's wings, and her offer still stands. Frustrated, the pedagogue questions why men have to cling to women and says they have feet and hands, so they can carve their own path independently. Seeing this, one of the women asks if, by chance, he has a faulty brain. Smiling, Wu remarks that since ancient times, men have been pursued by women, and women are the pillars of this world. She adds that women are the ones steering the changes in social matters. Twisting her hair, she says even children know that. At that moment, one of the women asks what's so special about a man like him. She questions how many male heroes there are in literature, concluding that women are more important in society. Approaching the protagonist's questions, Wu asking what she means by that. Pointing upward, he declares that all he knows is that men are constantly striving to improve. Therefore, resting on the lap of a beautiful woman and working to be rewarded is what men do. After this declaration, he simply leaves with his sister. Frustrated, one of the guards calls out to Ms. Wu. Her boss then asks if she doesn't find that man fascinating, stating that he's her type and that she won't let him go. The guard calls Ms. Wu again, saying they need her to return immediately. However, the woman responds that she's only been away for 2 days and asks how she could return now, adding that they should stop addressing her that way since her sister is still alive. Sometime later at night, Xiao is walking with her brother and asks if he plans to tell their parents about this. The boy responds that he will then questions what she could have done without him. Deeply irritated, the girl asks if he was threatening her about what happened. Pausing to think about it now, she asks how he became so strong. She then questions if she can't marry Yichen in the future, saying she's inherited to a very important family in the city. She concludes that if they marry, she will benefit, and besides, she's only a few years older than him, which leaves the boy completely dismayed. Profoundly annoyed, he tells her to shut up, saying one more word and he'll send her back to that bar. Sometime later, already at the protagonist's house, he meditates, thinking that he wants to regain his previous power as quickly as possible because his current strength isn't enough, and for now, his training has only sharpened his senses and improved his vision. Meanwhile, his sister is watching and impatiently tells her little brother to take off his pants already. However, The protagonist overhears this as he's using his sensory training. Dismayed, he thinks that this Chu Xia was worse than his sister in the original world. The next day at Inmen High School, the hero is already dressed in his school uniform, ready for class. In the background, someone calls his name. Confused, he wonders if this is his best friend, Lin Dong. At that moment, his friend approaches, asking what he was doing yesterday and why he didn't answer his calls. Quickly, the boy distances himself. Not understanding anything, his friend asks why he's acting so strange. Laughing, Chu just says to forget it, that he's fine and that he's leaving now. As he walks away, he thinks that this Barbie could never be his friend. In the classroom, Chu feels dismayed, affirming that he can't stand staying in this world anymore. Suddenly, someone approaches and taps him on the shoulder. Confused, the boy looks to the side. It's Song Xiaoran, the class president, who asks Chu if he's feeling unwell. Awkwardly, he replies that he's fine and that he just didn't eat well for breakfast and is already hungry. He wants and reminds him that the university entrance exam is soon, so he needs to be okay. In the background, someone questions the girl with glasses, asking how she dares to talk to him and if she has a problem. It's another classmate of Chu. Quickly, she approaches the boy and asks if he read the love letter yesterday. Without thinking twice, the protagonist punches the woman in the chest, telling her to back off. Seeing the boy's strength, everyone is shocked. Irritated, the woman asks who he thinks he is and asserts that he's just a man. She then prepares to punch him in the face. However, someone steps in, telling them to stop immediately. It's Wei Mao, Wei Qing's brother. The bully is surprised to see Wei Mao and asks what he's doing here. Answering, the boy just says she should leave before he gets tired of her. Running off, the bully claims she's only leaving because he's Wei Qing's brother. Mao then comments to Chu that he has something to say and asks if he has a minute to talk. Sometime later, both are on the school rooftop. Apologizing, Mao says he's really sorry for yesterday and that he heard about what happened with his sister. He explains that when he asked someone to pick him up, he lost track of his location. Flashing back to yesterday, the protagonist stands in front of the Wei family house. Mao then asks his sister to drive the boy home. Inside the car, she offers him water. She says she doesn't have any other drinks, but if he's thirsty, he should drink this. The protagonist accepts the drink without hesitation. Despondent Mao apologizes again, saying that if he had realized what his sister would do, he wouldn't have asked her to drive him. However, Chu tells him to forget about it, not to dwell on it or feel guilty, and suggests they head back inside. After class ends, everyone begins to leave. Looking to the side, the boy notices a car approaching. It's Yimao's sister, who asks the protagonist to get in the car. Suspicious, he asks why he should do that while wondering why she's following him. Smiling, the woman simply warns him to think about his family. Having no choice, Chu decides to get in the car while the girl says this is how she likes it and calls him handsome. Chu then warns her that she made a grave mistake by involving herself with his family. Using the reverse card, the girl comments on the possibility that she might not be referring to a threat. However, the hero says that whether it's a threat or not, she wouldn't need to mention it otherwise. Suddenly, he breaks some sort of crystal hanging in the car. Approaching the girl, he states that she should understand the consequences of daring to threaten him. Nervously, he explains that it's not a threat and that she can genuinely help his sister and mother. She adds that she knows his family's company has been having issues recently. With a sadistic smile, the boy questions whether she feels sorry for him. She responds, saying she'll only say it once, explaining that she's pursuing him. She suggests they start as friends and she'll take care of his family's business problems. Hearing this, Chu steps back. Casually, he says it's fine and that they can start as friends. With a suspicious air, he comments that if this was her intention, she shouldn't try to mess with him again. Irritated, he tells Yi to leave quickly. Sometime later, the girl calls the protagonist, saying she has something to ask him. With a sharp look, she asks if he practices ancient martial arts. However, the hero quickly responds that he doesn't. The woman then says she knows he lied about his strength and isn't like other men. She reveals that she did some investigating into him and his family. She concludes that even if she asked, he wouldn't answer because it must be a secret. After hearing this comment, the hero remains silent. However, looking to the side, he sees a truck approaching. He only has time to shout, "Watch out," but unfortunately, the truck collides head-on with the car. Due to the strong impact, the car the protagonist is in goes flying. It crashes onto the road, already overturned. Severely injured, he asks if Chu is okay. In this case, the boy managed to protect her by using his body as a shield. Surprised, Chu realizes that he's hurt. Resolute, Chu picks the girl up by the waist and breaks the car door. He then declares that they both need to get out of the car. After exiting the vehicle while carrying Yi in his arms, the girl says he's very injured and that they need need to go to the hospital immediately. However, the protagonist questions what she's talking about and asks if she thinks it's over. At that moment, several people approach them. It turns out to be a group of women holding baseball bats. Taking the lead, the leader asks how they dared to hurt her man and declares she will kill them all. Without engaging in dialogue, the women attack, some wielding baseball bats, others with glass bottles, and another with a machine. At this moment, Yi leaps and uses her abilities to defend herself. Meanwhile, a gray-haired woman approaches the boy with a mashie in hand. Clenching his fists, he thinks that once again, he has been underestimated. Quickly, he lands a powerful punch on the girl's ribs, disarming her. With the force of the impact, she is thrown far away, landing on the ground, already defeated. At the same time, he is fighting all four thugs simultaneously. With a serious look, the protagonist picks up the mashie from his opponent. Determined, he charges at the group surrounding Shang-Chai. In no time, he reaches the scene and strikes 3 women with a single blow, sending them flying. Seeing this, 2 women are left in shock. Completing her attack, Yi strikes both of them with the palm of her hand. All the women in question were defeated without much effort. Pleased with everything, Yi tells the protagonist that what he did was amazing. However, Mai responds that it was nothing and says she should handle the rest. Agreeing, her colleague says she'll call someone to take care of it and admits that if it weren't for the hero, she could have been in serious trouble. She then asks if he's really a prep school student. Explaining the situation, Shu says they can't eat anymore tonight and will have to reschedule as it's already late and his father must be worried. At that moment, the girl's phone starts vibrating. She answers asking what happened. Within seconds, her expression becomes perplexed and the hero notices. He begins to ask what really happened. However, she turns her face away, saying it's not important because it has nothing to do with him. She adds that other people's family matters aren't something a prep school student like him should deal with. Suddenly, Yi approaches the hero, grabbing his arm and telling him not to leave. With a trembling voice and already crying, she says that her mother was seriously injured in an attack and that she is at home at this very moment. Suspicious of the situation, Shu comments that both she and her mother were attacked at the same time, which means it can't be a coincidence, concluding that Jimmy's underworld will face a major shift. Worried, Wei talks about the possibility of her mother dying and her aunt taking control, which would certainly lead to her being expelled from the family. She then asks what she should do. Trying to calm her, he tells her not to cry as he will go with her, explaining that the family now depends on her, meaning she has to be strong and stay firm. He concludes that he can at least help lift her spirits. Surprised, the girl wonders why this is happening now and thinks about how she could really trust a man's feelings. Without hesitation, she approaches the hero and hugs him. Sometime later at night, at the Wei family home, surrounded by security, the young lady arrives, saying she's finally there. Somewhat worried about the situation, the girl asks how things are. In response, the woman says the situation is difficult. She can't enter because Ms. May said no one is allowed inside except for the madam. Irritated, the girl questions how this woman dares to do such a thing, while the protagonist asks who this Mai is. Shang-Chi explains that she's just the aunt her mother mentioned, someone who has been in the family for years, always scheming with other families in court, but since there was no concrete evidence, nothing could be done about her. Frustrated with her aunt, she tells the protagonist to accompany her there. However, one of the guards questions who the boy is, saying he can't pass. Arguing back, Wei asks how she dares mistreat her guests and questions who she thinks she is. Intervening, the protagonist claims to be a doctor and says he's here to check on Ms. Y, silently thinking how lucky he is to rise in this fairy world hierarchy. Seeing this, the women start laughing, wondering aloud if a man could actually be a doctor. However, the hero calmly states that one of them has had a reproductive nervous system infection for years, and mentions that the other suffers from plumaticinis, likely due to practicing martial arts from all angles and adopting traditional Chinese medicine recently. The blue-haired woman thinks that explains why her colleague takes so much medication, while the purple-haired one admits she can't criticize her, as she also takes medicine for intestinal pain relief. Both bow, saying he should go in. At that moment, Wizon approaches. This is Wai Mai, who remarks that it's fortunate she arrived on time, as otherwise, who knows what might have happened. She's standing next to Wai Mai. Deeply irritated, the girl expresses her frustration with her aunt and her love for her mother, insisting that she wants to see her now. With a mocking look, the woman says the young lady is very rude and asks if she shouldn't respect the hierarchy and call her aunt. Pointing at the boy, she questions how he dared bring this strange man, and states that no man is allowed to enter the Y family. However, the young lady explains that he's the doctor she called and insists they both be let in immediately. Surprised, the older woman says she thought he was just someone who had been brought home a few days ago. She explains that if he wants to enter, a man in the Y family must possess certain skills. Otherwise, he won't pass through this door. Initially, she asks her daughter to test how skilled this man is, and the girl agrees. The aunt thinks that if her daughter marries Wei Chen's man, she will fight to protect him, breaking family rules and no one will protect her. Mai recalls the boy handsome, saying that if she wins, he must promise her something. Smiling, he asks what she wants. With a suspicious look, the girl replies that if she wins, he must spend one night with her. However, Shang-Chi intervenes, telling Mai not to go too far. At that moment, the hero grabs his arm and says it's fine, and they should start. Suddenly, something moves toward the protagonist. Entering the fray, she tries to kick her niece, but he manages to defend himself, thinking she said that only to distract him. Counterattacking, Chu lands a punch in the girl's stomach. Due to the blow, she was flying backward, while her mother desperately calls out to her. Angrily, the hero asks if she still wants to spend the night with him. In the background, the aunt says this is horrible and calls him an animal, but the girl says that's enough and admits she was the one who provoked him. Mocking her, Chu tells the woman to take her daughter to the hospital because he cannot guarantee she isn't one of the impatients. As they leave, the woman holds her daughter in her arms, cursing them and calling him very cruel. Sometime later, inside the girl's house, the aunt can't seem to calm her mind as she waits for her niece. The woman hugs the girl, saying she's finally back. Changing the subject, Shang-Chi asks where her mother is, and her aunt replies that she's okay, but her injury is severe, and all they can do is keep her under observation. Joining the conversation, the protagonist says that if this is true, they can't wait any longer, and that he might be able to help. Confused, the blonde woman asks who this boy in front of her is. Ignoring the question, the hero simply says they need to trust him. Shang-Chi explains that this is her friend, who was also attacked but was lucky to be with her to help. She adds that he's also a doctor. They then enter the woman's room, and the girl rushes to her mother, hugging her and asking if she's okay. A bit weak, the woman asks who this boy is. Chu replies that he's a doctor, and that Shang-Chi entrusted him with her care, so he needs to see her wounds. Laughing, the woman says she doesn't believe he can do much about it and excuses herself for a moment, saying she needs to talk to her daughter privately. At that moment, the girl's aunt gestures to him to leave. Wu tells her mother that she should let him examine her because he's amazing, and if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been hurt today. Surprised, the woman realizes it's the first time her daughter has spoken positively about a man, and wonders if he's truly different from the rest. Chu then states that her assessment is correct, and explains that she was attacked and struck with a harmful energy on the left side of her back. He asks if she's weakened due to all the energy used to fight against the intrusive force. Shocked, the woman seems to realize he's absolutely right. In a calm yet serious tone, she asks her daughter to leave because she wants to talk to the boy alone. Hearing this, her daughter becomes a bit nervous, not understanding what's going on. At this moment, the hero is alone with the injured woman. Irritated, she questions if he was sent by the Lee family and asks what his intentions are regarding her daughter. The boy replies that he's not from the Lee family. He explains that she should ask her own daughter about her interest in him. He concludes by stating that if he hadn't saved her, she would already be dead. After hearing this, the woman says she believes him. She then decides to show him the wound. Removing her clothes, she warns the boy that if he does anything to her daughter, she'll cut off his head. With a nosebleed, Chu thinks she shouldn't undress so suddenly, and that even though he's underage, he's still a man. However, when he opens his eyes, he notices something strange. It's a type of curse marked on the woman's back. Nervous, he comments that whoever attacked caused more damage than he imagined, and that while she can resist for now, it will destroy her internal organs within 5 days. The Yi family's housekeeper then asks if he can do anything about it. Placing his hands on her back, he affirms that he will try. At that moment, he uses some kind of healing magic. The curse mark appears to be absorbed by the boy's hand. While this happens, the woman feels a kind of pain. Focused, the hero channels much of his energy to heal her. He sighs, saying his current level can only manage this much for now, and that he doesn't dare extract it all at once since he doesn't know what might happen. Impressed, the woman asks how he did that, and says the important thing is that she feels better now. Smiling, she asks if there's any way she can thank him, and whether there's something he wants. Awkwardly, she apologizes, saying her daughter is his friend, he felt he had to do it. Embarrassed, the woman starts laughing, saying they're just friends and that she'd forgotten about that. Sometime later, Shang-Chi tells the protagonist that he's incredible, and that she never thought he'd be able to heal her mother like that. The one hugging him says he shouldn't leave tonight because she has a reward to give him. Pulling away from her, the boy explains that if his parents find out he spent the night at a girl's house, they'll go crazy. Saying goodbye, Wei agrees, saying he's right, calling him handsome, and reminding him to be careful not to fall into temptation. At this moment, the hero is looking at his hand. Some sort of cursed energy is always present on his palm. Nervous, he thinks this thing is a curse that he can't eradicate with his current level, and that in the fairy world, there's an elixir that can deal with it. He wonders if something similar exists in this world. The next day, the hero is walking towards school. Looking to the side, he sees several men calling out to Tang Xian in admiration. She is the purple-haired girl who's just made a basket. Watching her, the protagonist realizes it's really her. She was his first love back in preparatory school. Excited, the boy says she makes his heart melt, while someone else remarks that Tang is a genius. At that moment, the hero remembers that things are different in this world, and that here they don't know each other. So he decides not to bother her or embarrass himself in front of her. Suddenly, someone calls out to "It's Tang," who asks the protagonist if they've met before. In response, the boy says they go to the same school, so probably yes. Arguing, the girl says that's not what she meant, and nervously, she thinks it's just like the other world where she's always investigating. Approaching him, she asks if he wants to play basketball, saying she'll teach him. Receiving the invitation, he just smiles and quickly steals the ball from her hands. While they interact, his index finger suggests they should play a match. Irritated, the purple-haired girl says it should be a competition, and if she wins, he'll be her boyfriend. With the mischievous tone, Shu asks what will happen if he wins, and she responds that she'll do whatever he wants. Everyone starts commenting that Tang Xian is about to play against the most talented boy in the school. On the basketball court, Xian makes her move. Quickly, she gets past the protagonist. She then shoots a three-pointer and makes the basket, leaving him completely impressed. As the girl plays, everyone says Xian will make him her boyfriend, and that she's the best. Confident in her victory, Tang says she won't hold back and wants him as her boyfriend. With his hand on his neck, the protagonist casually says she should try again. However, the girl charges at him again with the basketball. She makes an impressive leap to make the basket, but she notices something strange. Shu manages to block her attack and prevents her from scoring. The ball is sent flying far away. Impressed, someone wonders how a man can jump so high. Preparing to attack, the boy states it's his turn now. He charges toward the hoop for a point. In an impressive move, he jumps very high and makes a slam dunk. And just like that, he scores. Disheartened Tang admits defeat. Getting straight to the point, she asks what he wants from her. Approaching her, the protagonist touches her face and asks if she wants to be with him. The boy is watching feel embarrassed, saying he's so cool and completely nailed it. At that moment, Xian starts smiling. Blushing, she says that if he wants to be with her, he'll need to be stronger. Seeing this, the hero is shocked. He wonders when this girl became so proud of herself. Sometime later at the Wei family's house, the hero is once again healing the woman. Meanwhile, he thinks about how when he helped her aunt heal her wounds, he also made a 30% advancement in his pure aura and spiritual body. After finishing the task, the protagonist begins to leave. Just outside the house, he's talking with Shang-Chi, who says he saved her and her mother and asks what kind of reward he wants. At that moment, the hero imagines some sort of bizarre fantasy. Embarrassed, Shu starts to walk away, saying he needs time to think about it. On his way home, he thinks that during his next treatment for Aunt Wei, his spiritual body might fully awaken, making significant progress in this world. At that moment, someone steps out of a purple car wearing extravagant clothing. The person approaches the protagonist, asking if he's the so-called Chu King, and if it's true that he's been an after Tang Xian. Mocking him, the boy asks if he thinks he's handsome and wonders if he's ever met Lai Wu Witch. Disheartened, the hero wonders if this guy is an idiot. Charging forward, Lai asks if Chu is deaf since he's talking to him, and prepares to slap him. However, the hero quickly grabs his opponent's wrist, immobilizing him in an instant. Lai then yells to his security team, asking what they're doing and demanding they help him deal with this bastard. At that moment, the protagonist attacks, landing a kick on both guards. Afterward, he grabs Li's head and slams it into the ground. With a serious expression, he warns that next time Li wants to fight, he should bring more people. Angry, the man says the Li family won't let him get away with this and tells him not to think he'll have Yan because she will marry him. Punching the man in the face, the hero tells him he's too noisy and a nuisance. After beating the purple-haired man, Chu cleans his hands. As he walks away, he wonders if Tang Shu's decision has put his family in trouble and questions how they could agree to a marriage with the Li family. He decides to investigate further to gather more information. He quickly remembers Shang-Chi offering to reward him and decides to ask her for a favor. At that moment, he sends her a message saying he needs a private investigator for something. In response, she transfers money to him, saying he should keep it. However, the hero questions why she did that. Confused, the poor student realizes she might assume he doesn't have much money, but he understands that the funds are indeed necessary for investigating and buying information. He then makes a call, asking if he's speaking to Hua Hua, and begins to explain why he reached out. Interrupting, the girl asks if he's calling for love, stating she's not cheap. Sometime later, in a kind of restaurant, the hero sits waiting for someone. While sipping a drink, he recalls that when he called the information broker, she didn't ask for anything up front. Since she's a woman, he wonders if she's trustworthy. At that moment, someone approaches, tapping him on the shoulder. It's Shen Hua, 23 years old, greeting him. Approaching shyly, she asks what kind of information he wants. In shock, he wonders if she's really this girl, thinking she looks like a lowly. Smiling, Shen explains that it's indeed her, and he can just call her Hua. She then asks about his relationship with Yi Chuan. She asserts that the girl isn't his girlfriend and invites him to date her, leaving him utterly shocked. Coughing, the protagonist explains that he wants to buy information and asks if she knows anything about Tang Xian's family. Surprised, the girl asks if he's referring to the Tang Xian he faced in a basketball match and whether she's his girlfriend. He denies it. At that moment, he wonders how this girl knows such things about him and whether she investigated him. Placing her hand on her face, Shen asks if she can pursue the protagonist. However, he corrects her, saying she should seriously focus on finding someone else to buy information from. Getting straight to the point, the girl explains that the Tang family is a prominent commercial family, with the corporation as their headquarters and many of the city's major companies belong to them. She mentions that recently, there have been issues in the Tang family's industrial chain, causing financial difficulties, and the Li family proposed a marriage alliance. She explains that marrying Lai Erwei to Tang Xian, the head of the Tang family, would allow the Li family to support the Tang family. The hero thinks to himself that he didn't expect Tang Xian to have so many secrets in her past life, and wonders if she didn't mention it to avoid burdening him. The little girl then asks if that's all he wanted to know. However, the hero says he also wants to know something about alchemy. The investigator explains that the Tang family is a family of alchemists, specializing in elixirs and medicine. At that moment, she was surprised, realizing that alchemist families truly exist in this world. Curious, he asks the girl if she can provide all the information. Embarrassed, she says yes, but adds that it depends on the terms he proposes, calling him little handsome. Indignant, he asks her to stop looking at him like that, and she just laughs. She explains that there are two types of alchemy they know about. The first is common alchemy, where alchemists use extraordinary internal power for elixirs, which is the Tang family's specialty. However, the second type of alchemy utilizes mysterious spiritual power, which she hasn't fully understood yet. Upon hearing this, the protagonist is shocked and wonders if there are people in this world who are like him. After all that, the girl says she sold the information, totaling 100,000, and because he's handsome, she'll give him a 20% discount. She then asks if there is information about confidential transactions, such as medicinal ingredients and other things. Fuapua says that if he accompanies her to dinner, she'll tell him. Sometime later, both are walking down the street near a food stall. A boy calls her by name, asking if she's here to eat today. Sitting down, she orders 20 pork breasts and 4 cold beers. Impressed, the hero wonders if women in this world also like eating pork breasts and questions if this is normal. Walking around, he notices that all the women are eating pork breasts and drinking a lot of beer. Placing his hands on his face, he realizes he has forgotten this world is opposite of his original one. Sometime later, the girl already seems drunk. In this state, she is very close to the protagonist. Crying, she says that the boy she likes rejected her because he thinks she's poor, even though she's liked him for years. She explains that she's indeed flat-chested, but she has a small house and always plays video games. She asks if he doesn't think she deserves someone, but Chu responds that he doesn't. Upon hearing this, the girl pulls her hands away. Blushing, she asks the protagonist if, by any chance, he likes her. Sometime later, the boy is carrying her in his arms, telling her she shouldn't drink so much if she can't handle it. Chivalrously, the protagonist takes her to her home. As he thinks about how this blonde can't manage her own house, he concludes that she truly is a homemaker. The hero then places her on the bed to sleep. However, she quickly approaches him, grabbing him. With a trembling voice, she asks him to stay with her, and Chu accepts. Smiling, the girl says, "That's wonderful." Suddenly, she falls asleep on top of the protagonist. Sometime later, he is covered her with a blanket and is checking his phone messages. He starts reading news about the Tangs, the family that is in danger. He also finds information about the Shenzhen auction house, the most important one in Jimin, a business managed by a family knowledgeable in ancient martial arts. Smiling, he thinks it's impossible to survive in any world without money, and that, thanks to the gods, he has something of great value. A few days pass, and the hero is sitting on a rooftop, channeling energy. He understands that in the world of immortals, there is something known as a spiritual stone, which is used to accelerate cultivation and aid in practicing ancient martial arts. These stones can be obtained through veins or by cultivating eternity that absorbs the aura of heaven and earth. However, in this world, spiritual stones don't exist, so it's worth enlightening the ones he has. He states that as long as he makes them, money won't be a problem. At the Goitzia family family home in the late afternoon. The girl's mother is isolating some kind of energy as well. Smiling, she declares that her strength is back and tells the harpy to wait and see because she will return the favor. Praying for the boy, she thanks him, saying that if he ever has any trouble in the future, he only needs to ask, and they will help immediately. As he leaves, Chu reflects that he has completed the detoxification process for Madame Yi's body, and that now her spiritual power has been released to a certain extent. Thus, the mission is to cultivate it fully. At that moment, someone calls out to Chu King, telling him to wait. It's Shang-Chi who approaches and kisses him, and so the girl manages to do so. Embarrassed, she thanks the boy for healing her mother's daughters and explains that it's a small gift from her. Suddenly, a security guard appears, calling for the young lady and stating that she is being summoned for an urgent meeting. Saying goodbye to the protagonist, she apologizes, saying she has to go and can't stay today, but one day she will give him her complete gift. A bit awkward, the hero thinks being kissed by a girl like her isn't bad at all. Later, at his home, he is sitting on the bed, cultivating. At that moment, he starts emitting a great deal of energy from the palm of his hand. When he entered the space-time corridor, the only thing he couldn't leave behind was this sword. It has been with him for 100 years and seems limitless, though he also doubts it has anything to do with this world. At that moment, a massive burst of energy is generated in his body, and he declares that he will bid farewell to his weak self. Several markings resembling some kind of ancient script begin to appear on his body. Smiling, the hero states that his spiritual body has finally been revived. Entering the room, his sister appears, exclaiming that this is scandalous and asking what he is doing. At that moment, the protagonist realizes he is in trouble and quickly manages to hide the sword from her. However, he is undressed, nervous, and clearly shows that he is hiding something. Seeing this unusual scene, the girl simply closes the door and leaves. She remarks that he can enjoy his time and apologizes for interrupting his private activity. Disheartened, the boy realizes this is yet another misunderstanding. After this bizarre situation, he gets dressed and wears the sword as a necklace. He then thinks it's time to visit the auction house to determine the value of the spiritual stone. Sometime later, the protagonist enters the auction house to achieve his goal. A man asks what time it is and questions why there is nothing happening. He informs the boy that the auction is closed and tells him to come back tomorrow. However, the hero simply shows the magical stone in the palm of his hand. The attendant initially says it's just a yellow stone, but quickly realizes it's something much more significant. Shocked, he stands up from his chair. Approaching, he asks if he can see it. Holding it in his hands, he notices that the stone emanates a lot of energy and can even aid in cultivation, making it a rare treasure. Introducing himself, he says his name is Zhai Yu, heading to the Shaizen auction house. Greeting him, the hero introduces himself as Chu Qing. Curious, the attendant asks how many of these stones he has and what they're called. The boy responds that it's a spiritual stone, and the man likely already knows its effect, revealing that he has 5 in total. Determined, the man offers 200,000 yen per stone, totaling 1,000,000 yen. Sometime later, the hero leaves the shop thinking it was worth it as the price was higher than he expected. He considers that if everything works out, he could establish a significant business monopoly, and it's only a matter of time before a great storm accelerates the martial arts auction world. At that moment, he receives a message from a girl inviting him to a bar that night. Looking to the side, the boy notices the presence of someone mysterious. It's a person wearing some kind of trench coat. Wielding a knife, the figure charges at the protagonist. To defend himself, he quickly activates the sword formation. With the magic activated, he successfully deflects the knife attack. Impressed, the assailant steps back, questioning what kind of power this is. The hero swiftly counterattacks, using his energy. Charging forward, he delivers a fatal strike with his magical sword. The man is defeated effortlessly. At that moment, rain falls around him. Pressing his sword on the man's shoulder, he forces him to surrender. With a stern gaze, he demands to know who sent him. Frightened, the man confesses that Lee Owie hired him to kill the protagonist. He admits that Lee told him Chu was a weak student, but now sees that was a lie. Hearing this confession, the boy simply smiles. Without hesitation, he finishes the man off. As he leaves, he tells the man to relax because his preacher will come to collect his body later. Walking away from the scene, he becomes irritated, deciding to put an end to the Lee family. However, he starts feeling some kind of pain in his chest and wonders what's happening. Leaning against a wall, he realizes his body feels hot, and it's the first time he's struggled to control it. Additionally, his vision begins to darken. Chu moves along the wall with great difficulty. He then wonders how he ended up in this place. Some time passes, and he heads toward Hua's house. By the looks of him, the protagonist seems seems drunk. Without a second thought, he hugs her tightly. Embarrassed, the girl asks what he's doing. Chu responds with a kiss. As he kisses her against the wall, some kind of pink energy radiates from both of them. Afterward, he apologizes and wonders why he feels such a strong attraction today. He questions if it's because he killed someone in this world earlier. After the kiss, the girl simply embraces him. Smiling, she tells him he needs to apologize and shouldn't hold back. As a result, the two share an intimate moment. Later, he lies on the couch with the girl on top of him. While thinking that he doesn't want to get too involved with this world, he realizes some things are beyond his control, and now he has this woman. Smiling, he tells himself he has no choice but to conquer this world. The next day at school, the hero appears to be sleeping at his desk. At that moment, Tang enters the classroom asking about Chu Xing. Hearing his name, the protagonist raises his head. The pink-haired girl approaches him, saying he shouldn't sleep but have lunch with her instead. Surprised, the hero wonders why the women in this world are so bold. Suddenly, Tang notices something strange. Getting closer to the hero, she asks why he smells like another woman. Feeling intimidated, the boy squirms awkwardly in his seat. Changing the subject, Tang asks where he wants to eat. Awkwardly, the protagonist gets up, saying he's ready to go. Relieved, he thinks that luckily the girl will keep investigating, and that if she found out he spent the night with another girl, she'd get very angry, which would be problematic. In the corridor, his friend wonders if this is a dream, as Tang and Jian are inviting Chuxing to lunch. While walking through the school, the boy is still a little suspicious, and then asks Tang why she invited him so suddenly. In response, she simply says she wanted to eat with him. Curious, she asks if she can hug him now. Coldly, the hero thinks the girl wasn't shy when she said that, so it's not as interesting. Quickly, he takes her hand, which makes her completely flustered. Seeing the girl's reaction, he just laughs and pinches her cheek, but she pulls away, irritated, asking how he dares pinch her. The hero laughs, showing how happy he is. Observing Tang, he thinks he doesn't know why he suddenly felt tenderness in his heart, something that has never happened before as she was raised to be in Harris since childhood. However, after seeing him on the basketball court, she somehow developed astonishing feelings for him, even thinking of him as the most important person in her life. She affirms to herself that she feels protected when she's with him. Bringing her hands to her face, the girl is embarrassed, wondering why she's thinking such strange things. Outside of school, they are at some kind of restaurant. The hero catches the waitress's attention, ordering 2 bowls of noodles without cilantro, but with chili and vinegar. Surprised, Tang wonders how he knows she likes that, questioning if he has been investigating her. Surprised, the protagonist asks what's wrong with her since her face is red. At that moment, 2 women approach. Observing them, the boy begins to feel suspicious. He then notices that each is carrying a knife under there. At that moment, the boy is told his order is ready. She gets up to get his food. At the same time, one of the women signals to her companion. Both stand up, already holding their knives. The braided-haired woman charges toward Tang to attack her from behind. However, she ends up being hit by a bowl of noodles. The protagonist burns himself because the noodles are very hot. Her companion, however, doesn't give up and goes after Tang, but the protagonist intervenes and takes the stab intended for his supposed girlfriend. Seeing this, Tang is surprised and in shock. Irritated, the hero begins to emit a large amount of energy, throwing the woman far away. However, her companion is still standing. Worried, Tang tells the protagonist to run away since she is the target, but Chu states that he won't leave her alone and charges toward the braided-haired woman. She counterattacks with a kick, but the protagonist manages to dodge. Irritated, he channels all of his energy into his fist. He strikes her, sending her flying far away. However, the short-haired woman appears behind the hero to hit him. Using her maximum strength, she slaps his back. Looking back with a terrifying expression, the protagonist shows that it was just a scratch. He then strikes her too, sending her flying far away and ending the battle. Both were completely defeated and left seriously injured. Nervously, Tang asks if he comes from a family focused on ancient martial arts. In response, Chu says no, and that it's a bit difficult to explain, but that he's just an ordinary person. Taking her hand, the boy explains that he'll tell her the details later, but for now they need to leave because this place isn't safe and they should contact her family to deal with the 2 attackers. Outside the establishment, Xian is carrying the protagonist. He appears to have a serious wound on his body. Still worried about the situation, she suggests taking him to the hospital. Smiling, Chu says not to worry because he can heal the small wound himself. Looking thoughtful, he considers that the 2 were mediocre assassins, but still managed to hurt him as if they were using magical weapons, so he must be more careful next time. At that moment, Tang tells Chu that it seems he has already investigated her family. Curious, she asks if Lai or Wei hit him and if he's in danger. Confidently, the boy says no and assures her he can still handle people like them, so there's nothing to worry about. Seeing the hero's strength and confidence, the girl becomes slightly flustered. Awkwardly, she asks why he saved her. Equally uneasy, the The hero replies that he doesn't know while thinking he can't tell her she was his girlfriend in another life. Chu then says that, in truth, it feels as if he's known her for a long time, so much so that he would do anything for her, even die. Hearing this, the purple-haired girl is left completely speechless. Continuing, he explains that as long as she trusts him, he will help her. He concludes by saying he knows her family has been having problems recently. Tang explains that her family is famous for their medical expertise in pharmaceutical factories. A month ago, their family formula was stolen, and at the same time, other families joined forces to push them out of the game. She reveals they've been investigating and discovered that the Li family is behind everything. With a serious expression, the protagonist thinks that once again, it's the family, not only trying to destroy the Tang family, but also closely watching them. He wonders if they aren't afraid of the consequences. Grasping the girl's shoulders, he asks if she would believe him if he said he could help solve her family's problems. Impressed, she asks if he can really do that. Tang smiles and responds that it's simple, as long as they can create a new refinement formula. Tang adds that it's easier said than done. Her family has dozens of research facilities in the city, and even then, it took them 20 years to develop a few formulas. The protagonist tells her not to worry and says they will discuss the matter later. He informs her that there will be lightning in 2 days, and after that, his family won't be able to overlook him. That will be the time to discuss the matter in depth. Suddenly, he feels the pain in his chest again. Worried, Tang moves closer, asking what's wrong. At that moment, the hero recalls that he marked Yi with a reiki and wonders if it can suddenly fade like this. Saying goodbye, the hero tells Tang he has something to do and will return to school. He asks her to inform Ling Dong to apologize to the teacher on his behalf. He calls Hua Hua, saying that it seems Wei Cheng is in serious trouble, and asks if they can track her phone and send the location. On the computer, the girl responds that she'll try and send it immediately. Calling Zai Yu, Chu introduces himself and explains his situation. The attendant asks if he has something valuable. Chu replies no, explaining he needs help and asking for a car. The man asks where Chu is and promises to pick him up, excusing himself to his clients, saying something urgent has come up and announces that the auction house will be closed for the day. Sometime later, Chu finds himself in a Lamborghini. Inside the car, the protagonist notices Wei Cheng's location has changed. Showing it to the driver, he says they need to head to that location. The attendant tells him to hold on and, using some kind of crazy magic, accelerates the car dramatically. At that moment, the boy uses a special kind of vision. With it, he can see through objects and spots Wei Cheng unconscious in the back of a van. Xu Wen tells the driver that this is the vehicle they need to stop. The attendant accelerates, positioning the car in front of the van, causing it to brake abruptly and crash into a wall. The protagonist exits the car to assess the situation. 2 armed men step out of the van severely injured as the hero approaches with his magical sword. Drawing their weapons, they shout to act quickly and fire. However, the hero is faster and strikes them with his magical sword effortlessly. With a single blow, both men fall to the ground. The protagonist then approaches the van to open it. However, a sort of spider sense suddenly activates. A mysterious person fires some kind of lightning in his direction. The hero narrowly dodges, but the van is now in flames. At that moment, 2 men who appear to be time travelers approach. Surprised, the hero realizes that this ability is not something ordinary people possess and remembers that, in this world, someone practicing ancient martial arts like him is rare. At this moment, one of the men comments that the boy is still young and talented, inviting him to join the Quan Jin cult. In response, the protagonist says he has heard of them, but questions why this cult produces failures like the 2 before him. Irritated, the man asks his companion about the word failure, stating that his brothers should not speak to this boy, but kill him instead as he has insulted their master and themselves. Maintaining his composure, the hero questions how superficial people like them dare to descend from the mountain and suggests they should return and train for a few more years. This statement leaves the 2 brothers stunned, but one in the green kimono becomes extremely angry and begins using his weapon. Charging forward, he yells, questioning how the boy dares insult him and his brother, declaring he will kill him. However, the hero wields his magical sword and quickly blocks the attack. The man in the green kimono retreats but notices that his weapon has broken. Even angrier, he demands to know how the boy dared to damage his weapon. The hero then goes on the offensive with his sword, declaring he will destroy it. The man's staff becomes even more cracked, and before long it breaks completely. Using more energy, he charges again, declaring the boy must go to hell. However, with his magical sword, Chu completely disables the man, severing one of his arms. Seeing this, his brother is horrified. Using some kind of brush, the brother questions how the boy dared to harm his sibling. He then releases a powerful energy, strong enough to create an explosion. However, the protagonist uses the injured brother as a hostage. With a sadistic look, he discards one of his opponents, telling the remaining brother that if he wants to advance, he must do so properly. He asserts that the man should not descend the mountain to kidnap a girl and questions if that's what Taoists in this world do. Profoundly irritated, the man in the blue kimono declares that the boy will die today. He leaves into the air toward the boy. However, Chu appears behind him and strikes him with his sword from behind. In shock, the man wonders how this is possible, while Kai comments that their master has certainly deceived them. After this fight, several people are left lying on the ground, defeated near the flames. At that moment, the hero realizes that Y is still alive. Slapping her face lightly, he tells her to wake up. The girl wakes up irritated and simply glares at him. Approaching her, she asks what he is doing there and comments that the two men were very strong and she couldn't defeat them, so she had to run. However, the hero simply moves closer to her. Hugging her, he tells her not to worry and that she shouldn't be scared either because everything is fine now. At that moment, she notices that everyone is already defeated and lying on the ground. Stepping back, the protagonist asks if she knows who did all this. In response, she says she has a hunch. It might be the work of the Lee family, since the two families have officially started a war. Seeing this, the hero thinks it's no surprise that the Lee family is making moves and assumes they are working with the Taoists on the mountain, forming certain agreements. She explains that these masters are not ordinary people, but men with great powers, like those who captured her. She then states that she's sure they don't belong to a family of ancient martial arts, since during the attack, it didn't even vary their breathing. Surprised, Shang-Chi comments that she can no longer underestimate these men. Chu agrees, but says that given her family's current situation, she shouldn't be overly optimistic. Irritated, the girl retorts, saying it's not just the Lee family. There are also smaller families and other individuals who will create problems among themselves. Starting to understand, the hero asks if this has to do with the X auction, and whether it might be the reason why the ancient martial arts families have been so active recently. Nodding, the girl says it's possible that the Lee family has received advanced information about the auction and attacks on other families, but since others haven't obtained this same information, they are unable to prepare properly. Giving the hero a kiss, she tells him he is her lucky star. Embarrassed, she asks if he can go home with her because she needs to return and share this news with other family members. Besides, her mother has been looking for him to thank him. In response, the hero simply ruffles her hair. Smiling, he says he'll go with her. Sometime later at night, in the Y family's house, the aunts, along with the girl's mother, are seated at a table. They are all staring at Shinda, Exi, and Chu. Smiling, the woman invites Chu to sit. However, one of the aunts says he should wait a minute. This slightly disrupts the purple-haired ceremony. The aunt comments that the participation of strangers in the family's secret meetings is inappropriate. Pointing at Chu, she adds that, on top of that, he's a man. Still smiling, he tells her to relax, assuring her he's not here to join the council. He concludes by saying he didn't come for her secret meeting. At that moment, the woman thinks she has been careless and that she wanted to use this opportunity to solidify his marriage with Shinda Exi, but now it seems impossible. Showing the magical stone, the hero states he came to cooperate. He then tosses the stone toward the complaining aunt. Examining the stone, she says it doesn't seem fake, while her sister asks what it is. The boy explains that it's a spiritual stone. He elaborates that she can now feel the flow of her inner strength through her body. Holding the stone, the mother feels the energy. However, she's strong enough to release a large amount of energy through her body. All the women in the room start to worry, but the woman smiles, asking how many of these stones he has and saying she wants to buy them all if the price is reasonable. The protagonist, however, explains that the spiritual stone isn't sold directly. One of the aunts becomes irritated, accusing Shinda Exi and her boy of playing with them. Shu asks to finish his explanation, stating that the item will be evaluated in 2 days and its price will be based on the auction results. If interested, they can purchase it with a discount. He concludes that the reason he came was to offer something else, protective clothing and elixirs that can boost combat effectiveness in a short time. Hearing about increased combat effectiveness, the women are impressed, and one asks how much it can be improved. Shu responds that it's about 30%. Shang-Chi's mother then asks how long it would take to produce and what the price would be. Shu explains that the clothing can be made in days, and the women can determine the prices. As for the elixir, it takes about a week, and the price will be set upon delivery of the first batch. Skeptical, one of the aunts asks why he's helping them like this. The hero responds that he's doing it because Yi Shang-Chi is his friend. Hearing this, she feels a bit embarrassed, but happy. Sometime later, the two are outside the house. Smiling, Shang-Chi admits she initially wanted to have fun with the boy, but they became friends and he even helped her family. Smiling, the boy thinks life in this world has been worth it. He tells himself that after the auctions and with her family's help, he'll be able to build his empire in Jimin. Sometime later, he arrives at his house, calling for his father and mother. However, he notices an unexpected presence. It's Chu Kingxie's aunt. The boy greets her, wondering what's going on as he's never heard of other relatives. Getting straight to the point, the woman remarks that he's very handsome and says she's here to arrange his marriage. Shocked, the protagonist questions what she's talking about, pointing out that he's only 17 and still a minor. Inz responds that he's still studying and says he should only discuss this after finishing university. But the older woman questions what man wants to go to university, calling it a waste of money. Irritated, the hero remembers that this is a world where women dominate men. Changing the subject, the older woman asks the protagonist's mother where Chukyo is, and she replies that she's at home doing nothing. Seeing this, the hero thinks that his sister is actually sleeping right now. Smoking, the aunt comments that it's a shame her family's educational methods are not the same as her mother's, since her children are well-mannered. Standing up, the father says he needs to have a talk and offers to prepare some tea. Looking back, the hero notices that his father seems rather sad. Irritated, he remarks that the woman has said enough in jokes about stuffing her into a bag. The old woman asks the mother what she ever saw in him, saying she should have married someone from the Lee family in Hikesea. At that moment, the hero slams a pipe onto the table, startling the two women. With a murderous glare, he apologizes, claiming there was an insect on the table. The aunt then says she'll answer this time, warning of the consequences if one isn't provided. As she leaves, she tells Chu to enjoy his last year at school and hints that he might not be far from marriage. Mockingly, the protagonist questions why he should listen to her. In response, she says his family plans to arrange a marriage with a wealthy woman to improve their financial situation. Crossing his arms, the boy apologizes sarcastically, saying he doesn't sell himself that easily. Knowing the woman is rich, he asks how much she can pay for a leg. Frustrated, the old woman tells her sister to take the boy to a hospital because he's clearly unwell. Irritated, he simply leaves the room and isolates himself in his bedroom. Inside, he calls Xingzi, saying he has something to discuss. Sometime later, the old woman is with two men who operate in the adult entertainment business. A woman approaches, asking Yi if the plan is only to cut off the woman's leg. Xingzi replies that they should also take a kidney. Sometime later, Chu Xing is levitating stones using his power. He holds one stone surrounded by a glowing aura. The young man thinks that the situation in Jinmen has been unstable, though he still has issues with his family. However, at least he has time to create magical artifacts to protect those he loves. Suddenly, the stone transforms into a stiletto, which then moves toward one of the green stones. The stone glows intensely, and the stiletto is flung away. The protagonist thinks that the material he obtained from Jiayu isn't bad. He can store an arsenal of protective swords and detect when the wielder is in danger. Chu Xing's family is eating in the dining room. His father says he needs to study hard. After a brief silence, the brown-haired boy replies that his father shouldn't worry about that, as he'll always be there to help his parents. The man remarks that health is the most important thing, regardless of financial circumstances. Chu Xing agrees and reveals that he made something. He places jade necklaces on the table for his father and sister. His family members hold the objects confused. The protagonist's father asks where he got the material and why it feels so good to the touch. His son reveals that he brought it from the temple and says they likely have some beneficial effects. At school, Chu Xing is in class. He notices that his mortal body hasn't handled the fatigue of creating magical artifacts well. The blue-haired girl sitting behind him warns him not to sleep in class. However, she holds back when the teacher approaches her. The instructor firmly taps her hand on Chu King's desk. She asks the boy to solve the exercise on the board if he's finished resting. The protagonist, having not paid attention, doesn't know how to solve the calculations. However, he remembers that Xiaoran had taught him something similar before. With confidence, he begins writing on the board. Chu Xing sets down the chalk and tells the teacher he's finished. The teacher is astonished, wondering how he could solve it so quickly given his reputation for sleeping in class. The woman remarks that he can't sleep in class even if he already knows the material. The brown-haired boy reflects that he was a pathetic student his entire life and that the teacher had never treated him so well before. She suggests he become the class representative. Chu Xing tries to protest, but the teacher threateningly asks if he has any other objections. Lying on his desk, he uses his powers and thinks about the amulet he promised his family, realizing he needs to make it soon. He creates a small sword in his hand, recalling that magical amulets can block attacks. He estimates that their price should be at least Y30,000 or more. A chubby boy taps the protagonist on the shoulder and invites him to eat. At that moment, the small amulet Chu Xing was working on explodes. His friend asks how he can play with fire in the classroom. Chu Xing's small weapon turns into a charred sword. He hands it to his friend, saying that with it, you will be safe. However, no one can know about this. The young man who had tapped his shoulder earlier reveals that he has no doubt Chu Xing is his best friend, and also wants to give him something. He raises a small soda bottle in his hands. The protagonist gets angry because the soda is already half empty, but his friend wants to tell him something. In a few days, the sports festival will take place, and the young man asks if Chu-Xing wants to participate since he beat the school's #1 in basketball. The brown-haired boy reveals that he won't participate. His companion says that the video of the match has already spread, and they will force him to play. Finally, he asks if Chu-Xing doesn't want to make memories in his last sports year. Chu-Xing thinks his friend is right, especially since, in his previous life, he didn't participate. He decides he will attend the festival. The chubby boy is happy because he can go to eat. The brown-haired young man asks if he was betting on it. However, his friend denies it. The girl enters the classroom. She has peach-colored hair. Other students wonder if she is Lin Yuan, the school star who plays piano and sings. She approaches Chu-Xing, revealing that it's been a long time since they last saw each other. Lin Yuan says he has become the school's celebrity after defeating Tang Xian. The protagonist says it was pure luck. His friend tells him their middle school friends are having a reunion and asks who he thinks will organize it. He asks if it's Zhuogu-kun. The girl questions how he guessed. Chu-Xing says that Zhuogu-kun always likes being the center of attention. Lin Yuan asks if his friend will still attend. Otherwise, it will be very boring. The young man asks when it will be. The girl responds that tomorrow night she will call him. She pinches one of his cheeks. Finally, Lin Yuan says that every time she sees Chu-Xing, he seems better. No wonder Tang Xian cares so much about him. Lin Yuan leaves the classroom. Chu-Xing wonders since when the girl dares to tease him. His blue-haired friend asks why he is so close to the peach-haired girl. The protagonist says they were classmates in middle and elementary school. The other boy reveals that Lin Yuan is his goddess and that he needs her autograph. The brown-haired young man asks his friend why he didn't ask while she was around. He replies that he would never dare do that, but if he could spend a day with her, he would die happy. Chu-Xing leaves the classroom, saying he needs to do something. A girl with purple hair is in her classroom reading a book. The protagonist approaches her and asks if she is doing her homework. The young woman lifts her head and admires his face. She reveals that her task is very difficult, blushing. The boy says he can teach her since it's the same thing he solved earlier in class. Chu-Xing explains it to her while others watch. The purple-haired girl understands the task using his method. Suddenly, a commotion forms around them, and the protagonist thinks it's not the right time for this. He stands up and holds the girl's hand, saying he needs to tell her something. They are now in the school's open court. Chu-Xing places something in her hands and says she should use it to stay safe. The young woman observes the necklace she just received and realizes the pendant isn't easy to come by. She gives it back to the boy, saying she can't accept something so expensive. The brown-haired boy says it will keep her safe and asks her to trust him. His companion gets emotional and thanks her friend. The protagonist is in another class. He thinks about making 10 amulets before going home. With his hand under the desk, he continues crafting magical artifacts. The class ends and the boy puts away his materials. He thinks he still needs to see Chengxi Shi tonight to see how much he can offer his family. A hand touches Chu-Xing's shoulder. It's his blue-haired friend, asking if they are going out tonight. The protagonist asks where. Your colleague reveals that it is a very beautiful and exciting place. Chu-Xing leaves the room and says that this time he cannot go. Then, Chengxi hugs the protagonist. She reveals that finally he has arrived. At that moment, the dark-haired girl notices that he smells of another woman and asks if he is attracting someone. Chu-Xing, in turn, defends himself by asking her to forget about it. Then, he shows the girl the necklace he made for her, saying she doesn't need to pay for it. Chengxi observes the material. Shortly after, a white object moves quickly through the air toward her. The young woman gets startled and raises her amulet, which conjures a purple shield in the air. Chu-Xing approaches her and says that the necklace will activate automatically whenever she is in danger. The girl looks happy. Then, she pushes him onto the bed, saying that this is really cool. Chengxi says he shouldn't run away just because he gave her that and declares that if she finds out he is with someone else, she will hurt him. The boy places his hand on her face and lays her on the bed. He reveals that he has to leave but will return in a few days. At Huahua's apartment, Chu-Hung enters and notices she didn't lock the door. His sister is sleeping on the couch. As he approaches, the boy notices she is crying and possibly having a nightmare. The little pink-haired girl wakes up. She hugs her brother, saying she dreamed of her mother again and that she didn't want her or their father. Chu-Xing's sister asks if he won't end up like her and abandon her. The boy thinks that perhaps one day he might return to another world. Then he strokes the girl's hair and says he won't do that. She reveals that it's better if he doesn't dare, otherwise she will bite him. The girl jumps onto her brother. Chen Huahua is sleeping. Chu-Xing thinks he should return home since it's the weekend, and his father must not find out he didn't spend the night there. When he grabs his phone, the boy accidentally clicks the mouse. He wonders what's showing on his computer. He realizes it's information about an ancient martial arts family. Then the protagonist looks at his sister and thinks that she helped him collect a lot of information. Finally, he leaves a protective amulet by her side and kisses her before leaving. The young man is walking on the street. He answers a call from his father. The latter asks where his son is, threatening to send his mother to pick him up. Chu-Xing says he's near the shopping center. A car stops for him to get in. The protagonist comments that his mother arrived quickly, and she says she was nearby. She then notices that he smells of a woman. The brown-haired boy says he was at a party with his colleagues, and there were a lot of people there. He thinks about how sensitive women are to these things. His mother pulls out a pack of cigarettes and warns him that he must not be alone with a woman. Chu says he knows and asks if she hadn't quit smoking. The woman excuses herself, saying it's to mask the boy's scent and avoid punishment from his father. The protagonist pinches his nose and thanks her. A notification appears on his phone. Chu-Xing discovers that a magical amulet was sold to the Yi family for 1.2 million. He thinks he can get rich with his knowledge from the fairy world and needs to create something even more expensive. Perhaps the big business he needs is approaching. At home, the boy's father asks him to let him know if his mother starts smoking again. The protagonist says he's on his father's side. By message, Chu-Xing asks Jiayu when he's free so that he can deliver something to him. The man responds that it can be right now. At a restaurant, the two friends meet. Jiayu holds the amulet and notices that it's fantastic, worth at least 10 million. The brown-haired young man says he already knows what it is, so there's no need to tire himself explaining. His companion notices that it seems Chu-Xing investigated him. Then he raises a glass of wine. The white-haired man slams his mug on the table and reveals it's the first time someone wants to be his friend. The protagonist asks why he says that. Jiayu shares that he grew up with his father until adolescence, only to discover that his mother was from a prominent family. After that, he was transferred to a noble school. However, the students looked at him strangely, and a girl he had just met asked if he was a legitimate boy. The man asks his companion if he knows what it feels like to always feel strange and never connect with nobles. Although he had spent the last few years training many familiar skills or missing opportunities in his eyes, he might still be considered a stranger. Chu-Xing reveals that he doesn't have problems like that, but he isn't far from understanding his pain. The boy's mother is also from a prominent family that didn't accept her relationship with his father, forcing them to elope. Recently, the maternal side of the boy's family pressured his parents, saying they would marry Chu-Xing to an overweight woman weighing more than 90 kilograms. Jiayu laughs out loud and apologizes as he can't help it. However, the protagonist was already expecting such a reaction. The white-haired man suggests that the two get drunk together. The friends toast, and Jiayu wishes the young man luck in enduring the overweight woman. Chu-Xing stumbles up the stairs of his building, drunk. A short-haired girl opens the door to his apartment. She gets startled when the young man's arms touch her shoulders. The protagonist covers the woman's mouth and asks if she wants to wake up their parents. The girl declares that he will never get married if he keeps getting drunk like this. Moments later, she starts feeling dizzy and collapses into Chu-Xing's arms. The girl is now lying on a bed. At this point, the boy thinks he can't take it. He suddenly leans forward. The brown-haired young man thinks it feels good and soft. The short-haired girl tells Xiaofeng not to be shy. Chu-Xing, sitting beside her, wonders who this Xiaofeng is. The girl moves closer to the boy to kiss him. The protagonist, however, stands up in shock, thinking he can't do this with his sister. Entering a clothing store, an employee notices the boy's good looks. Chu-Xing asks her to pack all the clothes and send them to his house. The young man thinks that now he has bought clothes for the class reunion. He needs a car so he won't inconvenience Jiayu when needed. Someone calls him from behind. A boy wearing lots of jewelry asks if Chu-Xing doesn't recognize him, addressing him as a classmate. Chu-Xing recognizes Ju Bokun. His classmate asks if the protagonist didn't like staying at home all day and if he isn't going to the class reunion. The boy confirms he's going because Lin Wan asked him personally. Then Ju Bokun says he'll be waiting. He leaves the scene angry, just like Chu-Xing. The hero arrives at school. Some students call him disgusting. These are memories from his school days. Another girl mocks him, saying he looks like a virgin but is probably a pervert. After entering high school, Chu-Xing realizes he was alone because of Ju Bokun, who spread lies about him. He thinks that tonight will give Ju a chance to bully him again. A salesperson calls the brown-haired young man to check out the discounted cars at the store. A woman shows him a car. The boy doesn't seem to like the small red sports model. He asks if there isn't a more masculine model he can buy. Finally, Chu-Xing chooses a car, and the salesperson brings the invoice. The store employees comment that the boy buying the car is handsome and must have a benefactor since he's underage. Chu-Xing thinks it's unfair they assume he couldn't have earned the money himself. On the night of the party, he arrives with his car and finds himself at the restaurant where he once ate with Zhao Yu. The boy enters and notices the chaos. He takes a deep breath and tries to get used to it. The purple-haired girl is there. The brown-haired young man wonders where Lin Wan is. The girl says she doesn't know, but Ju Bokun's bet that Chu Qing would come in uniform will be lost, and he'll have to treat everyone to a week of restaurant. The protagonist thinks Zhao must not be thinking straight since he saw him buying clothes and still made the bet. A group of boys is talking with Ju Bokun. He seems very angry. The purple-haired girl reveals that maybe Zhao didn't believe Chu Qing could buy clothes. The protagonist turns and reminds his classmate that he'll have to pay for everyone's meals for a week, including his. At that moment, the young man wearing several pieces of jewelry assures that he'll cover the meals for the upcoming week, and everyone celebrates. However, Ju Bokun is still furious. The girl says Ju was very clever and reduced the chances of other outcomes, but the bet will still be expensive. The brown-haired young man thinks it was his colleague who started the bet and lost. The students are all drinking. Zhao suddenly announces that he is forming a men's basketball team to play in the Olympics and asks if Chu Qing will join the group. The young man replies that he is not interested. The purple-haired girl asks if by saying that Chu Qing plays so-so, he was implying that she doesn't know how to play. He gets nervous and is left speechless. Tang Zhan declares that they should put aside their personal issues and focus on winning. Ju Bokun says he has no problems, but he's not sure about Chu Qing. The girl questions what he thinks. The young man in turn raises a piece of meat and reveals that he thinks everything is perfect, offering her the piece of food he is holding. Tang is surprised and smiles. She leans forward to eat. The boy with chains shows an irritated expression. Tang wants to know if her colleague will join the basketball team. The protagonist agrees to participate on one condition, that the girl gives him a kiss. She offers a French kiss. The boy asks her to close her eyes. Then he kisses her. The purple-haired girl offers a special reward if he wins the competition. Their classmates declare that if Tang Zhan doesn't invite them, they won't accept her new boyfriend. The girl says it's not a problem, and Chu Qing says he was the one who was going to win over Tang Zhan. Then he invites everyone to have dessert at a great restaurant nearby. Everyone celebrates the invitation. The purple-haired girl asks if the protagonist is sure he can invite everyone. He asks if she thinks he can't pay. The protagonist strokes her head and says he cannot disappoint her. Tang Zhan comments that he is a man and might seek more fame than a girl. Jo Bukun thinks he should be the protagonist of the gathering. All the students head to the restaurant to eat dessert. Tang Zhan comments that the food is delicious. Jo Bukun notices Liu Wen arriving and asks if she has finished her work. The girl says she had something very important to do and couldn't come earlier. Without paying much attention to him, she approaches Chu Qing. The protagonist says it's rude of her to keep him waiting. Liu Wen explains that the company wanted her to record a video, and she had no choice. The young man asks if she's ready for her debut. One of the students mentions that the pianist isn't there today, so Jo Bukun could play for them. The boy reveals that he passed level 6 in piano, and says it would be more fun if Liu Wen could show some of her dancing as well. The girl says she doesn't mind. Then she dedicates the dance to her best friend, extending her hand to Chu Qing. The students note the happiness the protagonist must be feeling, and the girls decide to help even though they lack talents. Jo Bukun plays angrily. Meanwhile, Liu Wen dances. The brown-haired young man comments that the kid plays piano very well. Tang Zhan asks if he doesn't think the dance is better. The boy asks if she's jealous. His girlfriend says the woman is dancing especially for him. Therefore, he must not disappoint her. The pianist observes the scene from afar. He becomes indignant that the protagonist is ignoring the dance performed in his honor by talking to another girl. He slams the keys with his hand and stands up. Jo Bukun asks if Chu Qing knows what respect means. The protagonist says whether he listens or not is his own problem, so he shouldn't have rushed to conclusions. The pianist says the boy should pay attention to Liu Wen, not him. Chu Qing stands up. He drinks the rest of the wine in his glass. The peach-haired girl smiles. She bows. Jo Bukun says Chu Qing is poor and doesn't know the rules for watching a performance. The protagonist remarks that the music isn't good and whistles a better tune. Then he declares that he would have cut off his hands if he played like that. The pianist orders his colleague to kneel and apologize to him. Chu Qing says the pianist can say goodbye to his hands. Jo Bukun is shocked. Then the protagonist starts whistling and mesmerizes everyone present. Some of the girls recognize the song. The boy with chains feels as if he's in a field of flowers. At that moment, the hero remembers that this is the true song of the gods, which he obtained in his past life. Some classmates comment that it's the first time they've heard such a beautiful song, and that their classmate Jo Bukun is doomed. The guy was startled by Chu Qing's malicious gaze. He trembles as his shadow begins to emerge from his enemy. A hand appears in front of him. It's Lin Wan trying to protect her classmate. The protagonist asks if she wants him to forgive Jo. The girl feels uncomfortable. Tang Zhan tells her boyfriend to stop scaring the pianist because if he continues, there will be trouble. The brown-haired young man thinks that earlier, because of the heavenly music, he was influenced by his rage and forgot he's not in heaven. He grabs the dessert knife. Then, he points it at Jo Bukun, who asks what he's doing. In the shadow, several blows are struck. Moments later, It's revealed that the strikes were to cut the pianist's hair. Joe panics as he touches his head and is startled by a knife fallen near him. Chuching says he's no longer the person who used to be bullied and hopes his classmate remembers that. Joe Bukun asks if he's not being too harsh. The protagonist says that even if Joe had begged, he wouldn't have let it slide, adding that he only kneels before his parents. Right after, Chuching orders him to leave because he never wants to see him again. The boy with many chains leaves the place. After a moment of tension, the protagonist says they should celebrate the departure of an annoying person. The classmates continue the party. Tang Jian remarks that her boyfriend is getting harder to understand. Chuching tells his girlfriend that soon she'll know who he truly is. He then drives his car back home. He wonders how he'll go back home smelling like beer. His sister is calling him. The boy says he won't be able to return home that night and asks her to make up an excuse for their parents. The girl says she won't lie for him. However, she changes her mind when her brother says he'll pay her. The young man goes to his apartment thinking Hua Hua will be awake. Surprisingly, someone had already opened the door. Upon entering, Chuching finds a man holding his girlfriend's wrists. The man looks old. The stranger asks Hua Hua who the boy who just entered is. The protagonist replies that the girl is his girlfriend and asks who the man is. The man again asks about the boy's identity and then reveals he's the girl's father, asking if the boy can pay off her $3 million debt. The pink-haired girl defends herself, saying it was her father who gambled the $3 million. Chu Hua Hua's father says it doesn't matter since she's his daughter, so she must pay. His daughter questions how he expects her to get all that money. She angrily throws her credit card in his face and tells him to leave. The man says the money isn't enough and that he'll ask the rest from her boyfriend. Hua Hua says he doesn't have money because he's just a student. The man thinks his daughter is dating this student to get his money. She argues that the boy wouldn't even notice her if he were rich. The girl's father grabs her arm, saying he'll find her a man with plenty of money, and as long as he's of age, the rest doesn't matter. The man adds that his daughter can sell her body as all she needs is to spend one night with rich people without marrying them. Chu Hua Hua begins to cry. She runs into her boyfriend's arms. Xuxing says he can pay the debt as long as the man never speaks to his daughter again. Curious, the man asks if he's serious. The protagonist asks Hua Hua to leave the situation to him. The girl's father says $3 million isn't enough. He needs $5 million. The girl curses her father. The brown-haired boy says he'll hand over the money as soon as the man signs a document agreeing never to speak to her again. However, the debtor refuses but promises not to contact her. Xuxing says whatever he writes will be his problem, but when the night is over and he can no longer sell his daughter, the protagonist won't hand over the money. The man becomes worried and asks where the papers are. Finally, he hands over the contract. Afterward, the girl's father asks where the money is. The protagonist says there's no need to rush and that he'll show him something. He holds a mug in his hand and using his magic transforms it into a weapon. The man is astonished when he realizes that the boy knows how to use magic. At that moment, the object is launched from Xuxing's hands and ends up hitting Hua Hua's father's face. The brown-haired young man threatens that if he finds out the man bothers Hua Hua again, he will use his torture techniques to kill someone without her noticing. The man, now injured, leaves. The pink-haired girl hugs her boyfriend. She cries and declares that she will pay the $5 million. However, her beloved says that's nothing more than pocket change to him. The girl smiles, and finally the two kiss. The day begins, and the two wake up together. Hua Hua wakes the protagonist. He notices the scorching sun and asks how she managed to wake up so early. The girl says he should get up quickly because she wants to teach him something. Hua Hua and Xuxing are having breakfast at the table. The house looks spotless. The boy asks why she is being so affectionate with him. The girl replies that it's because she doesn't want to lose him. The young man says she doesn't need to do that. She just needs to be herself. Hua Hua is washing the dishes. Xuxing notices his back is very sore. Suddenly, his phone vibrates. He receives a message from Jai Hu saying that the problem is resolved. The brown-haired young man thanks his friend for lending him the $5 million. Then he is surprised by another message. It's from Tang Xian asking him to come to the basketball club after class. Xuxing arrives at school. On the court, several people are playing dodgeball. Some kids are getting hit. The purple-haired girl waits in the stands. The protagonist approaches her and asks if they are playing basketball or getting hit by the ball, wondering how they will manage to play that way. His girlfriend responds that they can't expect to be at a girl's level. She then reminds him that he had mentioned a new medicinal formula to her. Xuxing, in turn, raises a piece of paper, showing her the formula that helps mages enhance their magic. Tang Xian takes the paper and asks if he trusts her and isn't afraid she might cheat him. The young man asks if she would believe him if he said money doesn't matter to him. He just wants to help. His friend trusts him. The purple-haired girl confesses that now she is truly truly in love with him. However, the protagonist asks if she didn't like him before. She replies that before she was just interested, and before finishing her sentence, she pulls Xu Xing close to kiss him. The protagonist notices a basketball heading toward them. Using his reflexes, he raises his hand. "Joe Bakun doesn't like to see me seeing." The brown-haired young man spins the basketball on his finger and says that because of her, she has a fan club that won't stand to see the two of them together. Tang Xian gets furious at the players and orders them to run 50 laps around the court. It's nighttime, and the hero is at home when his mother enters his room. The boy asks why his mother came in. The woman sits on his bed and asks her son to answer honestly if he likes any girl. King says he does, but asks why his mother is asking that so suddenly. She thinks it must be some girl from a family, and reveals she doesn't mind him growing up with someone he loves. He himself met his second aunt a few days ago. He also knows there are 7 or 8 family members, and his grandmother married 5 men and had many children. Their family is large and has many strict rules. His mother also says that Qiu Qing's second aunt had an accident, which is delaying the plans. The young man asks if that really happened. The woman also says that she feels helpless at the moment and can't protect her son. The boy questions whether they can't just be friendly. The woman says that if his idea is to marry Ye Kangxi, it won't work because her family isn't that big, and it seems they recently offended someone. Finally, she asks if Qiu Qing knows about the National University. The boy reveals that he does, as it's the #1 university in the country, and also one of the most powerful forces. The protagonist's mother says that if he wants to avoid the marriage, he should enter the National University. That way, the Qiu family wouldn't dare oppose the university's opportunities. Later, the protagonist is meditating. He knows that the National University holds a very special presence in this world, having provided countless resources to the Empire. Certainly, there's a lot of information, and he wants to uncover the secrets of this world. Additionally, the cultivation level of this world is equal to that of the fairy world. Using his magic, the boy manages to create another amulet shaped like a small sword. There are 5 eternal cultivation domains: Building Foundation, Danjing, Yanyang, Infant Transformation, and Mahayana, the highest level. The boy had been cultivating for 300 years. After reaching Mahayana and ascending, he thought he would enter the realm of eternity, but instead, he ended up in this strange world. Using his power, Qiu Qing is transforming the small sword amulet into a large golden sword. He feels that the weapon is changing even though it cannot be seen with the naked eye. It seems that he has entered the path of Yuhang Duyin. If the rust doesn't disappear, the consequences will be unimaginable. Why must the boy take this path, knowing that if the foundation of the road collapses, he will die? The protagonist must find the pot as quickly as possible and hide it before anyone else discovers it. Suddenly, Yu's Calais, and the boy answers. In this case, the man is angry because the auction is about to start, and his friend isn't there with him. The brown-haired boy wonders how this could have happened. He remembers receiving messages from his friend at school. However, he read them while sleepy and turned off his phone to take a nap. Apparently, he forgot and dozed off. Qiu Qing arrives at the auction. He looks for a spiritual material suitable for making his sword's sheath. They enter the Aixin auction house. Meanwhile, Yu is chatting with a woman in a red dress. As soon as she leaves, the man appears flustered. The protagonist realizes that the Jai family wants him to meet famous women. Some women in the venue comment on Qiu Qing's worn-out appearance. One of them intentionally bumps into him. A couple walking by tells the boy that this isn't a place for poor people like him and advises him to take a look at himself. Hyosina responds that this is the Jai family's property, and the woman is not the owner, but they've embarrassed themselves if she is that type of person. The fine-dressed woman threatens him, saying that just because he's a man doesn't mean she can't hit him. The brown-haired young man intercepts the blow. She was about to land on him. He reveals that he had no intention of fighting, but that she started it. He twists her arm, causing it to break, but one of his husband calls for security. A man approaches, stating that Qiu Qing is like a brother to him, and shaming him means shaming himself. It's Jai Yu who steps forward, telling the couple they are banned from entering the auction house from now on. He then calls the security team, and the couple apologizes. A friend of the protagonist notices his unpleasant reception. Qiu Qing asks if he has something he wants to tell him. Jai questions if the boy is a member of the Qiu imperial family, and the man confirms. The white-haired boy then mentions Qiu Qing's aunt who lost her leg and kidney. However, someone from the Qiu family in the imperial capital tried to purchase the information, but he immediately blocked them. Qing asks if his friend knows who committed the murder. However, he responds that Miss Yi Chengxi wasn't aware of which family had intervened. The protagonist was genuinely worried at the time, not knowing the imperial family's situation. 2 women enter the hall, greeting Qiu Qing. He recognizes his and Yi Chengxi. The boy's aunt says she heard he'll be taking the university exam, so he must study hard. The protagonist notices his aunt's concern and assures her everything will be fine. Yi Chengxi asks her mother to go ahead, and she has something to say to the brown-haired boy. Shortly after, the girl throws herself into her beloved's arms. Jai Yu announces that the auction will start soon, and they need to enter. The protagonist asks Jiayu not to take his aunt's words too seriously. The white-haired man says that the family head also cares about him, which is why she considers him her favorite son-in-law candidate. Qiuqing asks if there is any special metal in the area. His friend says that first, he and Miss Yi will head to the room, and then help provide plenty of information. In the room, Yi asks if the spiritual stone her boyfriend was looking for has actually appeared in the auction. He informs her that there are 5 of them. The young man offers his girlfriend a bottle of milk tea. The woman questions why he is going to drink wine. The boy remembers that women in this world enjoy loud drinks. Yi Chengxi says she can stop drinking if he doesn't like it. At that moment, she pulls the protagonist's hand and holds him close. She suggests that the 2 of them drink as much as they want together. Qiuqing realizes that she really wants something from him. Yi Chengyi reveals that she bought provocative clothes as the protagonist had requested. Qiuqing blushes at the thought. Suddenly, the woman pushes him onto the sofa. The boy knows her beauty is incredibly tempting. He decides not to resist and kisses her. Jiayu enters the room and encounters the pair in an intimate moment. The man quickly shuts the door and apologizes for interrupting. Chengxi suggests that they continue. Qiu pushes her aside and mentions that the auction will start soon. The woman asks why he is embarrassed now when he wasn't earlier. The brown-haired young man thinks that if it weren't for Jiayu, he might have left the girl defenseless. Then the protagonist calls out to the white-haired man who had been spying behind the door. The man enters, apologizing for disturbing their moment, but he brings important information. The 2 examine the tablet with the new details. Qing asks if all these items will be in the auction. There doesn't seem to be any material that could enhance his sword. His companion mentions a piece of mirai on the list. What's displayed is just a fragment, but there are hundreds of kilograms of it, which is enough to craft magical weapons. He notes that it's still hot because he almost burned himself when identifying it. Qiuqing remarks that it could be turned into an energy-efficient, pollution-free cooking pot. Yi Chengxi bursts out laughing. Jiayu says that Mr. Q's standards are too high, so he won't bother him further and takes his tablet. The white-haired man shows the news to the girl. She notices an item called Flam Ji, an ancient wine aged for many years. It is said to boost a soldier's strength if consumed. Qiuqing asks if his girlfriend wants it. However, she responds that it will be sought after by everyone, and she won't be able to keep it safe. Suddenly, the protagonist notices something. He points to the item and realizes it's Dawen. It's not about the wine, but the jar. Wasn't this the material of the golden god he had been looking for? Even if there's an issue, he might be able to purchase it. The hero says he's not interested in the wine, but in the bronze jar. The man wonders if it's a treasure. He thought he understood Qiuqing, but in the end, he misjudged him. Even so, he was astonished. Then the hero reveals that his friend has basic observation skills, but the bronze jar is the most valuable treasure, even if he couldn't identify it. The man realizes his technique doesn't compare to Mr. Q's. However, the boy says he will head home. His companion offers to take him somewhere fun, but the protagonist replies that if he goes out tonight, he'll have to wake up early to do his homework the next day. Xiu says he forgot that Qiuqing is still a student and tells him to go home and be a good boy. Qiuqing, in turn, shows him an offensive gesture. Later that night, Qiuqing is driving home in his car. It's late, and the boy hopes his parents won't find out. His goal of attending the auction has been achieved. If he can acquire the bronze piece, his power problem will be resolved. It's time for him to form a group or alliance with the Shaishen auction house. After all, in this life, Qiuqing is not a lone swordsman disconnected from others. He belongs to a family, he has friends, and people he loves. For all of this, the boy will fight with his life. The young man continues driving and doesn't notice the construction sign ahead. He stops and wonders why there are no other cars around. There wasn't any construction when he arrived at the auction. Suddenly, Qiuqing is taken by surprise. From the sky descends a powerful, killing aura. The protagonist parks his car where it can't be seen. He tries to blend into the forest. From a distance, he observes what seems to be a gathering. An elderly woman stands in front of several other women. A woman in a violet cloak steps forward. The brown-haired boy wonders who is under the purple robe, as her killing aura surpasses that of 6 people combined. The elderly woman addresses her as Officer Zhang Wu, saying she purchased the item with a great deal of money. What if, after this, she wants to kill them and crosses the line? That could be a violation of the government's authority. The emissary of Jiang, Wuyan Shanxi, had already mentioned this before. Unfortunately, the police cannot control the ancient martial arts families. To supervise them, the government sent a military surveillance department and an envoy named Zhang Wu. The woman in the purple robe states that the object belongs to the empire, not to any particular family or individual. She then questions whether the martial arts family will destroy the foundations of the empire, take what isn't theirs, and act on their own authority. The elder woman asks if this too is under the control of the figure in the purple robe, demanding to see a judgment order. Chu-Ching thinks this must be an example of the actions taken by the military surveillance department. The young woman affirms that she has the order. Then she moves to attack the old lady. The elder, in turn, is caught off guard by a punch to the stomach. She is thrown back into the other women. The woman in the purple robe is surrounded by dead bodies. Chu-Ching thinks she is very powerful, able to kill 6 people at once. She opens the trunk of her car and pulls out the bronze pot the protagonist was looking for. The boy realizes that this artifact is what the woman had been searching for. Jiang-Woo senses someone nearby and orders them to. Chu-Ching steps out of the woods and asks if she would believe that he is also like her. She responds by revealing that she does believe it. Before he can say anything else, she punches him in the face, declaring that he must die. However, the protagonist catches her punch with his hand. With his other hand, he grips his golden sword and tells her it's not wise to get offended so easily. Jiang-Woo surprises her with an attack, but she manages to escape by leaping away. The woman in the purple robe jumps and kicks the protagonist's face with all her strength. He, however, remains unfazed, surprising her. The brown-haired boy raises one arm, fleeing the warrior far away. He declares that her strength is insufficient to kill him. The woman asks if he wishes to die. She removes her cloak and holds a weapon in her hand. The protagonist realizes she is very strong. Jiang-Woo orders him to prepare to die and then fires a shot at his face. The bullet is about to hit his protective shield when Chu-Ching's golden barrier breaks, causing an explosion. The woman in the purple robe smiles at the situation. She approaches the car where the magical artifact is stored and grabs it with her hand. A golden sword strikes her from behind. When she realizes it, her back is being pierced. Jiang-Woo asks how he could do this and how he isn't dead. With one more strike from the golden sword, the woman collapses, dead on the ground. Chu-Ching realizes the bullet that hit him was so powerful that he had to seal his wound immediately. He sits on the ground and tries to use his magic to heal his injuries. He is in a lot of pain. Chu-Ching notices that his wound could kill him at any moment. The weapon used against him isn't anything special. His attention shifts to the bullet. The boy realizes that it was indeed the problem. The object was specifically created to deal with martial arts warriors. It's nighttime and Hua is gaming on her computer at home. Suddenly, her apartment door opens and Chu-Ching crawls in. The girl becomes worried as he is bleeding. She asks what happened and if she should take him to the hospital. The protagonist informs her that he won't die, but needs her to clean the rotting flesh with a knife. Hua attends to her boyfriend and asks why he is so injured. Holding the knife, the pink-haired girl hesitates, unsure of what to do. She then remembers she can call Sister Yi. Now the two women observe the boy. Yi Chengxi has an angry expression. She extends her hand and asks for the knife. Then, she plunges the blade deep into her boyfriend's neck. He screams in pain, and Hua watches the scene from a distance. Many tools are bloody beside him. Chu-Ching has his neck bandaged. The pink-haired girl asks if he's okay, and Yi Chengxi declares that he won't die. The brown-haired young man thinks that the situation is now going to be a problem for him. The dark-haired girl asks her companion to pour a glass of water for Chu-Ching. Now the two of them are alone. Yi Chengxi asks for the frightening look at something happened between her boyfriend and Hua. He asks what's wrong with him spending time with other women. The girl asks if he wouldn't mind if she went out with another man now. He replies that she's free to find another man. Yi Chengxi becomes furious with this kind of thinking. The brown-haired young man says that if she can't accept his mindset, they can break up now. The woman looks at him with an irritated expression. Then Chu-Ching's girlfriend grabs his ear and says that he should have looked for her instead of running to Hua. Ching explains that the people around him are very observant, and some things shouldn't be known by strangers. He questions what happened during the night. The boy reveals that he killed a Yang-Wu messenger. The pink-haired girl enters the room, and both girls are shocked to hear this information. The protagonist says he was merely defending himself. The dark-haired girl holds the bullet and remarks how amazing it is that he survived being hit by a Wang bullet. It's a nightmare for all martial arts warriors. It's an extremely powerful and difficult to make bullet. The object is manufactured by the Ministry of Military Supervision. Yi Chengxi asks what kind of Yang-Wu messenger he encountered last night. The boy says she was wearing a purple cloak. His girlfriend explains that the delegation is divided into 5 levels: red, yellow, green, blue, and purple. The red and purple are the weakest. Typically, a green cloak supervisor is eligible for wine chewing. The girl questions what Chu-Ching took from them and how he managed to encounter the purple cloaked supervisor who carries Wang. The boy wants to know the level of the martial arts warriors there. He doesn't understand how he doesn't know this considering he's a soldier. The brown-haired young man reveals that when he was little, he met an old man who kept lamenting. So he bought a book and studied it. Chengxi asks him to stop with these random origin stories. She informs him that martial arts are divided into 5 domains, from the smallest to the greatest: Hujing, Wujing, Nature, Transformation, and Sacred Realm Barrage. Each domain is divided into up to 9 levels. The girl reveals that she's in the 9th layer of Hujing. Assuming she will break through it, but for now she's fine. At that moment, Chu-Ching's alarm clock rings. He gets up in a hurry and says he needs to go to school or he'll be late. The dark-haired girl's hand stops him. She tells him not to push himself since he has a serious injury and needs to rest for a few days. The protagonist begins removing the bandages and wraps from his wounds. He shows how much better he already is. The young woman questions if he's inhuman, given his incredibly strong and rapid recovery ability. She also wants to know how he prevents the evil Wang Chu and aura from spreading through his wound. The boy offers to teach her. His girlfriend can hardly believe she's about to learn a technique that every soldier would want. The brown-haired young man says he'll teach her another day, but needs to go to school now. Yi Chengxi asks him to wait. She ends up scaring Hua Hua. The pink-haired girl calls out to Sister Yi, who barely looks back and slams the door shut. Hua Hu thinks she must really be angry with her. Class is starting. Chu-Ching is sleeping in his seat. His blue-haired friend calls out to him again to wake up. The boy is awakened by his teacher scolding him. She tells both of them to leave the classroom and instructs Chu-Ching to call his parents to come to school this afternoon. The boy asks if the teacher really needs to call his parents. She says she no longer cares whether he studies or not, but he's ruining the study of others. Xiaoren says the teacher is wrong. Her friend will also admit he was wrong. The boy promises not to disturb the other students next time. The class laughs at the situation. The teacher decides not to deal with Chu-Ching anymore, but asks Xiaoren to call her parents to prevent the situation from escalating further. She wants to show Xiaoren's parents how their daughter is wasting her studies because of a boy. The protagonist says the teacher is wrong. If she's gonna do this to the girl, she should do it to him too. The teacher offers a deal. If they don't score 10 points on the test, they'll need to call their parents and admit their relationship in front of the whole school. She wants to show everyone the dangers of young love. Chu-Ching doesn't understand how this girl could like him. A girl approaches Tang Xiaoyang. She brings bad news that's been spreading around the school. The purple-haired girl appears irritated. In the school hallway, several girls confront Xiaoren, who asks what they want. The girls demands to know her identity. Tang Xiaoyang's friend asks if Xiaoren really intends to steal the president's man. Tang Xiaoyang blushes and doesn't know how to respond. The purple-haired girl asks where Chu-Ching is. She finds him sleeping in the classroom. She then worries that he might be crying. Tang Xiaoyang touches her friend's shoulder and asks if he's okay. Chu-Ching wakes up and asks if there's a problem. The girl thought he was crying and wants to have lunch with him to talk about some rumors that have been going around. Xiaoren shows up, apologizing and saying it's all her fault. The protagonist knows his napping during class can be disruptive, but asks if the girl really likes him. Judging by her flustered reaction, the boy thinks he was right. He hugs the blue-haired girl and says they can always be good friends. Chu-Ching thinks that in his third life, he should do something worthwhile. Tang Xiaoyang looks irritated at the situation. The couple is having lunch with Tao Yunyao. She orders Chu-Ching to apologize to Xiaoyang for daring to hug another woman in front of her. The brown-haired boy says that Tang Xiaoyang's fans should apologize first. He then asks if she didn't understand what he said to Xiaoren. Tao Yunyao accuses the boy of being rebellious for not being spoiled by his girlfriend. However, he says that he's the one who will spoil her instead. The orange-haired girl stifles a laugh. Tang Xiaoyang says she's waiting for Chu-Ching to spoil her and asks what he will do. The protagonist tells her to wait and see. Recovering from her laughter, the young woman warns the brown-haired boy to stay away from other women and resolve his issues outside. She then shouts that she's serious. Chu-Ching grabs the girl's blouse and pulls her clothes. He asks if, when she talks about staying away from other women, he should also stay away from Tao Yunyao. The girl feels embarrassed. Tang Xiaoyang tells her friend she can leave. Then she says she'll leave as well. When the two are alone, the purple-haired girl asks if her boyfriend is upset because she doesn't spoil him. The protagonist reveals that he's different from others and doesn't expect that from her. Chu-Ching genuinely likes his girlfriend so she can trust him. The purple-haired girl is excited about this. Changing the subject, she talks about the recipe he gave her. It turns out she can't use it to practice martial arts. Instead, it's a poison. The protagonist is sure the recipe he gave was meant to help practitioners improve their magic. Tang Xiaoyang says that resuction poisons are very special and that labs don't know about them. However, the recipe is very important and highly valuable, so they will take it for whatever price Chu-Ching sets. The boy thinks that a recipe meant to improve cultivation becomes poison for the practitioner. He needs to study this carefully. The purple-haired girl reveals that this is very special for the Tang family. If he sets a low price, it will be an insult and a waste of time. The boy asks how much she thinks it's worth. The girl estimates the price at 200 million. Chu-Ching thinks that if he sells all his recipes, he could become rich. He closes the deal. He thinks he needs to buy some medicinal ingredients that can only be obtained from the Tang family. Tang Xiaoyang asks if he doesn't want to cultivate and make medicines. Her boyfriend asks if he can't do it. The girl reveals it doesn't matter because in the entire empire, No men make medicines. Maybe he can. The protagonist thinks the world is filled with hatred toward men. Tang Xiaoyang wipes some dirt from her boyfriend's cheek. She then licks her finger. Qiuqing asks what she's doing. The girl wants to know if he's embarrassed now. She suggests he doesn't practice ancient martial arts. If he wants to defend himself, she can protect him. The young brown-haired man notices that he doesn't seem well. This could be due to his treatment. Tang Xiaoyang hands him a healing potion. The girl says that if he continues practicing martial arts, it will have to break up since she doesn't want her future husband to become infertile. The protagonist wonders if ancient martial arts could really affect that kind of relationship. It's nighttime and Qiuqing enters his home. After a day, the collar of his shirt is grabbed by his father, who begins hitting him, saying that at least he still remembers how to come home. The man stops when he hears someone calling him. It's Yi Kangxi taking the blame for this because she was too drunk the night before. The boy thinks that explanation might actually make things worse. He wonders why Yi Kangxi is in his house. The brown-haired boy's father thinks his son has been corrupted. Qiuqing asks Yi Kangxi what she's doing there. The young woman offers him a remedy to heal him. Then with an irritated look, she says he doesn't need it anymore. She tells him that her family is friends with the Tang family and asks how he obtained this medication. Qiuqing asks who told her he doesn't need the potion anymore. Right after, he declares that he will teach her a method to handle the wine, chew, and bullet, and Yi Kangxi asks if he's sure about that. The protagonist says they'll start slowly. The two hold hands and a blue aura surrounds them. Then the power begins to activate, and the girl starts to feel the pressure. The brown-haired young man asks if she's okay. His girlfriend says it was very painful. Qiuqing offers her the potion to drink quickly. He questions himself about what really happened. The meridian usually breaks when he places the aura. Unfortunately, there's a cure for this. The last time he healed Aunt Yi, the aura also entered her body. However, she didn't experience this situation. Now he'll need to include the aura into her body. Qiuqing uses his magic to try to produce a healing effect. When he asks his girlfriend if it still hurts, she responds that it feels comfortable now. Perhaps that's why Tang Xiang said the formula was poisonous. The protagonist thinks he needs to investigate more martial arts methods to understand the differences between men and women in this world. He asks him to do it again. The boy asks her to put her clothes on. At that moment, his father enters the room and asks if they're studying in bed. Qiuqing tries to explain, and the girl says she was lying down because she was tired. Then, she declares that she's going home. The brown-haired young man says he didn't do anything with Yi Kangxi, and now he's going to sleep. He knows these abnormalities need to be studied in depth, but for now, the most important thing is the scabbard for his sword. At the scene of the previous day's battle, a woman in a green cloak observes that only a small amount of blood remains. She says that seeing an assassin isn't like seeing an ancient martial arts warrior, but rather a Taoist. The girl accompanying her in a blue cloak asks what she means. The woman in the green cloak wants them to check the hospital in Himen, then investigate the flow of drugs on the black market, and send someone to inspect the auction house. Her companion asks if they're going to Himen now. The other responds yes, as the fiancé her family arranged for her is in Himen. He is the son of Miss Chu, and they are going to visit him. Qiuqing suddenly sneezes in his room. He wonders who might be talking about him. Qiuqing is in his room with the bronze jar trying to refine his sword. He opens his eyes and realizes that finally, with this scabbard, his sword will no longer be damaged and will soon return to its original form. He raises his hand and suddenly a stone mask appears. The protagonist thinks that if he needs to fight in a future battle, he should use this mask. What remains is the ancient wine. The only thing that makes it special is that it caused many fighters to race to their deaths to obtain it. Suddenly, his phone rings. It's Yi Chengxi inviting him to her house for dinner. In Yuji's private kitchen, the three are dining together. The protagonist's aunt reveals that she's not sure if her remedy, which can boost combat strength in a short time, has been perfected. However, recently families have been seeking it, and she would like some if it's available. The young man says he doesn't have any with him, but he can make them by next week. Miss Q asks how much it will cost. Qiuqing says he doesn't need money. He only wants to borrow the ancient martial arts training method from the family. The atmosphere becomes tense, and he wonders if he said something wrong. The woman declares that this is a heritage more important than the lives of everyone in the family, and she cannot simply pass it on to outsiders. The protagonist is startled by this information. His aunt advises him not to practice these martial arts. She wants him to stop being a warrior, as it's pointless. The young man tries to think of how to explain why men have trouble practicing these martial arts. Yi Chengxi asks if the technique could be taught if Qiuqing were a family member. His mother responds that it would only be possible after marriage. The protagonist reveals that he cannot marry. However, Mrs. E says that if he doesn't want to ruin everything, he should stop talking about it. Her daughter looks sad. The boy knows he needs to investigate this further. He thinks of asking Jiayu and also paying off the 2 million debt. His white-haired friend asks since when he has so much money and if he's secretly dealing in spiritual stones. The boy doesn't disclose where his money comes from, but says he needs a training method. Jiayu asks if he seriously thinks an ancient martial arts method can be obtained so easily, and if he has ever practiced it. Qiuqing wants to change his training, but something is wrong with him. Jiayu laughs at his friend's comment. The brown-haired boy asks what's wrong with a man practicing martial arts. His white-haired companion says that men can't do that, but Qiuqing doesn't seem to heed his words. He wonders if martial arts are genuinely dangerous for all men. Jiayu says that this isn't something a man can do at the start. To force the training, one would need to be castrated or exploited. Now the protagonist recalls that Tang Xiang and Aunt Yi were right. His companion says he can help by contacting a hospital to schedule this castration. The boy states that he only needs a set of self-defense techniques and asks where he can buy them. Jiayu reveals that he doesn't have any and doesn't think his friend will be able to buy them. Families with these techniques would rather destroy their house than sell them. Qiuqing realizes he didn't expect women to monopolize the world so much. Perhaps they're afraid men might learn the exercises and destroy the world. The boy's phone rings. It's Hua informing him that some deliveries from the Tang family have arrived. Now the young man can make the medicines. It's nighttime, and the brown-haired boy is using his magic in his room. He creates a container from which golden pellets emerge. He realizes that making medicine is very complicated, but with this mask it becomes easier. Finally, he perfects the Kuang Yidan, pills that increase the user's power by 30%. Hua timidly opens the door to his room. Qiuqing says she can come in since he's finished. She asks what he was doing. The protagonist replies that he was making medicine. The pink-haired girl wonders if that isn't something only the Tang family can do. Qiuqing asks if she thinks he's lying. Hua wants to know if he'll go home now that he's finished his work. Her boyfriend hugs her in response, and then he kisses her. The boy asks if she wants him to go home or stay. His girlfriend wishes for him to stay by her side. Hua is the girl who most resembles a normal woman in Qiuqing's world. However, her reaction wasn't shy when she spoke. The boy picks her up and lays her on the bed. The girl informs him that they can't do this because she's in a risky period and doesn't want to get pregnant. It would be bad for the brown-haired boy if she got pregnant, and rumors might spread. The protagonist asks if she's saying he isn't responsible enough. Qing realizes he didn't sleep well that night. A boy calls him, saying his sister asked him to come to her. The brown-haired boy asks what she wants with him. Yimao says he doesn't know but questions if he's going to become his brother-in-law. And what about Tang Zhaoying in this situation? The brown-haired boy asks if that's what bothers his sister, or if Yimao likes Tang Zhaoying. His friend reveals that the only girl he likes is Tao Yunyao, and asks him not to tell anyone. The protagonist thinks his friend likes brainless women. He offers to help his friend win, but he must stop talking in such an embarrassing way. Suddenly, the boy remembers that men in this world are almost like Barbies and enjoy gossiping. His friend asks if he's going to win over the girl. Qiuqing promises that she will even want to date him, but he thinks about whether he will have to force or threaten her. The protagonist comes across Yi Chengxi leaning against his car. He asks why she came to see him today. The woman offers him milk tea. Her brother asks why she's so cruel and where his drink is. The girl replies that there's no drink for her brother and orders her boyfriend to drink it before it spoils. Qiuqing wonders if Yi Chengxi might still be upset about yesterday. The young woman explains that she stood in line for a long time to buy it and asked him to drink it all. The protagonist complies, but as he finishes, his vision begins to blur. He realizes the woman drugged him again. The cup falls from his hand, and the boy thinks how foolish she is. He passes out, and Yi Chengxi places him in the car. Yimao is shocked by his sister's behavior. She warns him not to get involved any further and tells him to take a Uber home. Then she speeds off in her car. Sometime later, now at night, Qing wakes up in a bed with Yi Chengxi on top of him. The boy panics and asks what she did. The young woman tells him not to move too much. Then she leans in and kisses him. The boy falls into despair. Qiuqing asks his girlfriend if she's never had any experience with all her connections. At that, the girl stands up. She reveals that she only controls them and nothing more. Besides, boyfriends aren't just for that. Finally, she hands him a book. The book is the Yi family's inscription diary. The woman says he needs to be her for the book to be revealed to him. The protagonist assures her that he already considers her his wife and is willing to do anything for her.
Yi Chengxi says he doesn't need to do anything for her, but she's willing to do anything for her future husband. Then she pulls him close. Their kiss seems to carry a kind of magic. The dark-haired young woman asks what her boyfriend put in her mouth. Qiuqing says it's something good and she'll find out soon enough. Yi Chengxi begins to exude a blue aura. Her companion is amazed by the ancient martial arts created by women. In this world, women are born with changes in their meridians.
And once they absorb a lot of spiritual power, they prepare to use ancient martial arts to transform spiritual power into internal strength. Men, on the other hand, don't have proper methods to absorb the power. If they practice martial arts, they'll explode and die. The emergence of this power allowed women to dominate the world. However, the hero hopes to change the method so that men can practice too. Suddenly, his companion opens her eyes and realizes she has broken through the Wuding barrier. Now she is in the third layer of the Wuding realm. Xuqing gave her the ancient wine, which is highly beneficial for women. The woman wants to know where he got it. However, the young man says it's a chastity secret. Because of this, Yi Chengxi wants to see if he's still stronger than her. The girl advances to punch her boyfriend. However, her hand is stopped. All her force is contained. Xuqing holds his woman in his arms. He whispers that he can't handle this. The dark-haired girl asks for more wine so they can continue what they were doing later. The boy asks if that wasn't enough. She pushes him onto the bed. The girl says she's still Yi Chengxi and will show him who's in charge. Xuqing wonders how he manages to live with his energy drained. Fortunately, he had taken the medicinal drink to keep himself distracted beforehand. The boy comes across Tao. She says Tang wants to see him. The protagonist gets a bad feeling. Then he heads to the extracurricular sports office. The purple-haired young woman asks where he was last night and what he was doing. In response, the young man says he was with Shen Xi in a hotel. Tang Xiaoying slams the table hard and stands up. The girl accuses him of shameless for admitting that so easily to her. The protagonist asks if he would be her only partner if they were together. The girl realizes her family wouldn't allow that. Xuqing says everyone should have equal rights. His girlfriend asks how men and women can have equal rights. The boy reveals that he will show the world what the word human truly means. Tang Xiaoying says he needs to study hard to achieve that. The protagonist suggests that if she doesn't understand him, they can go their separate ways. The girl asks if he's going to leave without saying anything to her. Then she questions if all men are like that. Xuqing tells her to say what she wants to say. She admits she likes him and that in the future, he must be her husband. However, what happened has made her furious, and she wishes she could kill Yi Shenxi. The young man says he won't allow that to happen. Tang Xiaoying reveals that's why she gave him a second chance. She suggests an arm wrestling competition. If he loses, Yi Shenxi will lose her hands. Xuqing asks if that's all. The purple-haired girl doesn't believe he can prove he's better than her. The protagonist orders them to begin. Tang Xiaoying declares she will never surrender to him. Xuqing says there's no need. A golden aura surrounds them both. Tang Xiaoying is using all her power. Her boyfriend notices that she's stronger than Yi Shenxi. He worries about the consequences of losing. Xuqing thinks he can't afford to lose and grabs one of his magical pills. He crushes it tightly, boosting his power. With ease, he slams Tang Xiaoying's hand down. The girl wonders how that's possible. Her boyfriend asks her to keep her word. The purple-haired girl says she'll let it go this time, but there won't be a next time. Finally, she shouts that if they don't get married, she won't leave him alone. It's nighttime. Xuqing enters his house. A girl in a green dress is in the living room. The boy's mother didn't expect him to return tonight. He explains that he had to come back because his teacher was busy. The girl in the green dress introduces herself as Gong Yu and says she's his fiancée. The boy asks her not to talk nonsense. The woman, however, shows him a copy of the marriage contract. The protagonist opens the document and looks at it. He doesn't know who signed the contract and doesn't recognize it, so he wishes the woman a happy life. Gong Yu asks if he recognizes her or not, but says his uncles definitely will. Xuqing's mother says the contract was signed by the family head, his mother and his grandmother. Apparently, Xu Alan has significant influence over his parents, and Gong Yu is bold enough to threaten the protagonist's parents in front of him. Qing tears the contract in half. The girl says he was very brave to do that, but Grandma Xu's emotions won't be so pleasant, although she promises not to tell her. At that moment, the brown-haired boy thinks this woman needs to get herself together. He declares he's going out to dinner tonight. His fiancée will accompany him so they can develop feelings for each other. The girl says Xuqing seems to have little reason to want to help his parents, and she'd rate him a 2 out of 10. The protagonist reveals that regardless of her score, he's been wanting to hit her for a long time. However, the girl jumps away. Gong Yu asks him to compliment her since they just met, and he can't want to hit her so soon. The brown-haired boy says her logic is flawed, and that he'll start when he knows where to find her. Gong Yu says she's a lady of the Shu family, and that Qing should be grateful she wants to marry him. The boy thanks her, and then says he doesn't care, aiming a kick at her. He's surprised when the girl counters with her leg, aiming a kick at him as well. After being pushed back, Xuqing realizes this woman is even stronger than Tang Xiang. The girl in the green dress says he's too handsome to get so angry. The protagonist thinks that if the fight continues like this, he will definitely lose. He uses his power with one hand and summons his great golden sword. The girl is surprised and then reaches inside her dress. The protagonist appears with a yellow sword in his hand, trying to attack the woman. The tension between them remains high. Gong Yu, attempting to make peace, asks Xuqing to calm down, raising her arms to show goodwill. The boy is lost in thoughts, analyzing the woman's strength as superior to others he has encountered. She interrupts his thoughts and informs him that he is qualified to be her husband. With a disdainful tone, he recalls her rejection of the proposal, and the blonde woman explains that she also wasn't in agreement with that arrangement. Emotionally, she shares a story about how, as a girl, she was unpopular with men and was surprised that her betrothed was a strong and handsome man. King begins to feel pressured. Gong warns him that there would be consequences if he disregarded the marriage. Curious, the young man asks about the possibility of being accepted into the national university. The blonde laughs loudly, expressing how impossible that would be. Angry, he walks away, thinking about revenge when he eventually gets into the university. Gong follows him, chattering away and starting multiple conversations at once. Shu-Qing quickens his pace, trying to escape the completely inconvenient situation. In an attempt to connect, she begins sharing secrets about the men of the university, leaving the boy embarrassed. The protagonist feels tense in this uncomfortable situation when suddenly he feels the woman unexpectedly grab his butt. He retaliates with a swing of his fist, fully energized and filled with anger. The woman tells him to calm down. As if teasing him, she winks, places his hand on her chest, and says she'll stop playing around. 2 days later, a sports event takes place in a lively stadium filled with cheering fans. Shu-Qing keeps thinking about that uncomfortable encounter and contemplates a way to get accepted into the university. A boy next to him asks why he isn't on the basketball team, and he explains that someone manipulated his expulsion. Zhao shows up at Shu's request to remind him there's a game that day and not to forget to go. The protagonist, focused on his book, replies that he doesn't have time for that. The messenger, in a demanding tone, snatches the book from the protagonist's hands and tells him has to go regardless. The book is thrown away from where the discussion is taking place. Xiaoao, visibly irritated, turns and starts walking away. Overwhelmed with anger, the protagonist turns to resolve the situation, grabbing a book nearby. Another book is thrown, this time hitting Xiao on the head. The boy, furious, yells and curses at Shu-Qing, asking if he's tired of living. With a furious expression, the protagonist, fists clenched, faces the boy ready for a fight. With total confidence and impatience, Shu-Qing orders Xiaoao to retrieve his book without hesitation. The messenger, with a mocking tone, questions the command to fetch the book. Enraged, full of anger, he lunges at Shu-Qing, saying he was getting too cocky. However, the protagonist simply dodges, letting the boy fall. Shu-Qing's friend, watching the entire scene, holds Xiaoao back, preventing a fight. This time Xiao bites him, causing him to complain in pain. Shu-Qing, out of patience, grabs both of them by the arms and pulls them apart. Holding them with an air of superiority and authority, he questions what they could do if they wanted to fight. He twists Xiao's arm with full force, causing him pain. The boy responds with insults, expressing his discomfort. However, those insults only irritate the protagonist further, who demands an apology. In addition to apologizing for the insults in the situation, Shu-Qing also demands an apology for how Xiao treated his friend in Yimao. At that moment, the vice president appears, observing the entire situation. She sternly states that this is no place for fighting and orders them to go to the principal's office with her. Xiaoao screams, begging and demanding help. He will help him and claims he isn't at fault. However, Shu-Qing explains the entire situation, even showing his friend's bite mark. The vice president questions why he responded with more aggression. The protagonist defends himself, saying he didn't want Xiaoao to continue his violent behavior and suggests recognition from the student council. The woman proposes hearing the other side of the story and questions Xiaoao, who is crying. Completely overcome with emotion, he begins to vomit. There is so much vomit that the vice president steps back and everyone panics. Realizing everyone is watching, his only reaction is to run away, crying and embarrassed. Meanwhile, Shu-Qing suggests to his friend that they go to the infirmary, expressing concern for Tang Xiang. The protagonist can't understand why Yimao seems so frightened, and Yimao simply states that he prefers not to get involved in trouble. At that moment, the boy realizes that his friend is actually quite brave despite the situation. The vice president runs to the student council to report the incident. She was telling Tang Xiang what her boyfriend Shu-Qing had just done. She began trying to change Tang's opinion about the protagonist, and Tang responded, stating that you would not be deceived by Shu-Qing. The vice president, in a somewhat intrusive tone, suggested that Tang should break up with her boyfriend, but she didn't react well to that type of interference, and with a completely serious and stern expression made it very clear. The colleague, apologizing with a few gestures, asked her to forget everything she had said. Xiang warned that she already knew about the situation, and that Shu-Qing had been the one to the problems first. The vice president countered by stating that Shu-Qing was very cunning, and that Tang wasn't noticing it. After that commotion, while they were in the infirmary, some of Shu-Qing's classmates showed up wanting to take action. Shu defended his informant friend, questioning why Shu-Qing had hit him. The protagonist, in a mocking tone, threw a key on the ground, interrupting the situation. He provoked the boy in an attempt to start another conflict. He didn't flinch and informed him that Tang had asked Shu Qing to attend the game. The protagonist stated that he wouldn't go, but he took responsibility for the incident and asked the boys to leave. Shu continued his provocation, questioning if he would break his promise to participate in the game. Shu Qing then decided that he would participate in the match as agreed. In the hall, even cheerleaders began their performance. Meanwhile, the presidents of the student councils from rival schools were waiting for the game to begin. They stared at each other without any friendliness or attempt to get closer. Shu Qing and his friend were approaching the venue. He was surprised to notice that the presidents of the councils from both schools were there. One of the players from the team waved at the two, catching their attention. He invited them to come closer. His name was Zhang. The boy prepared 2 chairs for them to wait until they were called. Shu Qing, being very perceptive, noticed something suspicious about one of the chairs. He masked his suspicion and sat in the other chair. For a moment, the boy thought he would exact his revenge, but was surprised to see that Shu Qing hadn't fallen for the trap. Disappointed, he moved away, joining his other friends. The protagonist then realized that they were still seeking revenge. His Alma approached with a note, asking how he felt sitting on the bench. He then realized that Shu was still upset with him. When he took the note to respond, Shu Qing was going to warn her not to sit in the adjacent chair. However, it was too late. She ended up sitting in the chair covered in glue. Unintentionally, he laughed at the situation, while she became irritated with everything that was happening. Zhang then stood up to leave the area, but was caught off guard. Her pants stuck to the wooden surface, leaving her underwear unintentionally exposed. She was completely embarrassed by the situation and was left speechless. He started teasing her, mentioning that her underwear was pink. Zhang became furious, questioning why Shu Qing hadn't said anything. The protagonist replied that he had written it in the note, but that trap had been intended for him. Quickly, she took off her jacket and tied it around her waist to hide the tear. This time, she turned the tables, leaving him embarrassed. She teased him, asking what he intended now that she was only wearing a bra. Without hesitation, he used his own jacket to cover her. He said he didn't want other boys looking at her. In an attempt to gauge his feelings, she asked if he was jealous. Even so, she removed the jacket and handed it back to him, walking away and telling him to get used to it. Shu Qing became furious, and Zhang replied that the game was about to start. With the game underway, the teams were going all out. The match was far from over, and both teams were determined to win. The protagonist observed how well Zhang had trained the team, but he noticed that something odd might be happening with the other team. It seemed they were somewhat lost throughout the match. Meanwhile, at the president's table, Lai Huangji asked Zhang if the boy on the reserve bench was her boyfriend, and in an attempt to provoke her, she suggested borrowing Shu Qing if her team won. Zhang immediately declined, ending the conversation without hesitation. The rival doubted she would lose, and thus declared that if she did, she would run naked. That conversation ended, and the rival team's president decided to give new orders to her players. They then started moving in a way entirely different from before. The home team felt lost. They hadn't anticipated this reaction. Then they began scoring points, leaving Zhang Ziyang desperate. The president realized that the rival team was intentionally playing poorly and became completely enraged. Lai Huangji continued the provocation, reminding her that she would lend her boyfriend. Shu Qing kept observing how the game was unfolding. He knew that the players on the rival team were much better than what they were showing so far. It was then that Zhang Ziyang announced it was his turn to enter the court. He questioned why he should play if he was only there to sit on the bench, and she asked him not to cause more trouble. They needed to win. Zhang commented on the agreement to lend the boyfriend for a month to the rival team's president. He decided to join the teasing and asked if it was the pretty girl sitting at the table with her. She was shocked by that comment, unable to believe what she had just heard. The protagonist joked, saying he wanted Kim as a cheerleader while he played. The president, not wanting to be outdone, decided to seduce and promise a reward if he won. He became ecstatic and excited, and as promised, she made him the cheerleader. Satisfied with everything that was happening, it was time for him to join the game. In his first move, he managed to steal the ball from a player on the rival team. He was fast, jumped high, and was determined to turn the situation around. But it wasn't easy, and President Lai Huangji was amused by everything that was happening. She mocked him, saying that Zhang's boyfriend was terrible and that winning the game would be easy. The score was indeed vastly different between the two teams. For this reason, Kim devised a strategy to solve the problem. He chose his best move and took a risk, successfully scoring a basket. The cheerleaders became excited and celebrated the change in the score. He noticed something different about the rival team captain, so he passed the ball to him as a chance to figure out what was going on. No one understood why Kim made that move. Everyone ended up without answers. The rival president was amused and thought he was in a hurry to leave with her. But when he questioned where the Adam's apple of the supposed man was, everyone was horrified, stunned, and confused. Lai Huangji showed frustration over everything that was happening, but seemed to know what was going on. The girl wearing panties in the middle of the court froze as the game came to an end. The rival team was disqualified, and he finally understood the truth about the captain of that team. Kim's first reaction was to ask Lai when she would fulfill the promise she had made. Clever as she was, the president questioned whether he had the courage to actually keep that promise. 3 days later, at the same school during class, Kim was writing quickly in his notebook. His friend Yi approached, asking what he was drawing that looked terrible. Showing the drawing and asking if his friend could understand it, the protagonist analyzed the possibility of a man's inner power to practice ancient martial arts. They delivered a message from Tang Ziyan, asking Kim to go to the martial arts training pavilion. He imagined all the possible reasons why she might be calling him there. When he arrived, he found Tang Ziyan ready to start a "that's exactly what happened." She invited him in for a fight, and he asked why she wanted to fight. The president replied that if he lost, she would reveal the reason. So they began a kind of messy fight in which he emerged as the winner. Despite that, he wanted to know the reason for the unexpected invitation. Tang Ziyan reminded him that the agreement was that she would only tell if Kim lost. To end the fight, she delivered a move he didn't expect, making her the actual champion. He fell to the ground, questioning the sanity of the situation. She was upset that he hadn't fulfilled the promise after the game, saying he was just a boy. Tang asked if he had stopped practicing ancient martial arts, and he told her to calm down, saying he wouldn't leave her a widow. They continued their clumsy conversation while playing the fighting and flirting. In a bold move, she kissed him, leaving him breathless and stunned. He interrupted the situation, saying they shouldn't be there, and she questioned if he might be embarrassed. Denying it, he stated that it was impossible to feel embarrassed in that situation. Someone appeared, making a deliberate coughing sound to announce their presence. The couple, who had been distracted, wondered who it could be. In the background, outside the arena, a group of 4 people could be seen. One of them appeared to be a very well-dressed woman with beautiful makeup and neatly styled hair. With hesitation, Tang grabbed her boyfriend by the collar and presented him as if he were a defendant. She told her father that this was her boyfriend, Shu Qing. Then, she introduced her father, King Yu, as the owner of the Central Martial Arts Pavilion. Shu Qing was confused, not fully understanding what was happening or how this could be true. The father modestly clarified, saying that it was an exaggeration and that everything actually belonged to the Tang family, and he was merely the manager. He also mentioned that the 3 boys accompanying him had been invited by Tang. The girl confirmed the invitation, leaving the protagonist puzzled by her actions. The 3 boys began defending themselves, apologizing for setting a trap for Shu Qing and even for playing poorly against Collegiate 2. The president emphasized that she would deal with Lai Huan later, but in addition to playing poorly and setting traps for Shu Qing, they had placed glue on the chair, leaving the 3 boys terrified. While an argument erupted between the president and the 3 students, Shu Qing felt vindicated regarding the situations. The girl's father then invited her boyfriend to apply medicine to his wounds and asked for her to clean up as he needed to leave. Shu Qing found it a bit disrespectful to Xiang, but accepted the invitation and they left together. Upon reaching a private room, the father asked the boy to take a seat. The protagonist immediately noted that it seemed like Xiang's father wanted to say something to him. King Yu served hot tea and began asking questions about the boy's personal life. Feeling completely uncomfortable, the protagonist assumed the man had already done a thorough background check on him. Finally, he took a deep breath and prepared himself for the awkward conversation. Shu Qing poured himself some tea and asked if it was a problem that he was poor and not enough to support the Tang family. The father replied that it didn't matter what he was, but rather how he appeared, and he came across as uneducated and worthless. Mockingly, the boy promised that he wouldn't marry into the Tang family, but acknowledged that some people seemed not to believe that. The sarcastic reply infuriated King Yu, causing him to spill his tea and move toward the boy. Shu Qing retorted that if Tang Ziang didn't want him, he would surely stay away from her. In response, the father slapped Shu Qing across the face. From that moment on, the tension escalated, and the pavilion owner stated he would scratch the protagonist's face. An uncontrolled fight broke out in the room between Shu Qing and King Yu. It was then that Tang Ziang realized something was wrong with the situation. Everyone heard a commotion coming from the room and ran to see what was happening. Upon arrival, all the furniture was overturned or broken. The protagonist was standing, and the father was on the ground. Struggling to get up, the man, still weak, continued to attack the boy, warning him that he also needed to be wary of the fact that he was a martial arts warrior. Rushing into the room, Xiang asked what had happened, and her boyfriend replied that they would have to break up because her father had asked him to stay away. The father clarified that he hadn't asked him to stay away from her, only that he couldn't become the head of the family family, and now believed even more that he wasn't worthy of her. Furious, Shu Qing pointed a finger at the man and demanded to hear what he had to say. The boy declared that he would never marry, even if the girl knelt and begged him to. Continuing, the boy told the man to worry about his own life and reminded him that everyone else who had struck his face had ended up dead, and he would be an exception solely because of the daughter. King Yu, enraged, demanded that they resume the fight. The boy then threw the yellow sword in the direction of Tang Ziyang's father. The sword grazed him, causing the man to fall to the ground, completely terrified. The three boys watching this scene were astonished, considering Shu Qing frightening. Ziyang rushed to help her father get up after all the conflict. Elsewhere, in a meeting room, a clan seemed to be addressing some kind of issue. They were gathered to solve the mystery of the death of Shu Kai, the messenger Jian Yu, who wore a purple robe. One of them presented something valuable, handing an unknown object to a blonde woman. She identifies that Shu must be hiding something, but since he belongs to the Zai family, they cannot capture him. So she decides on another strategy. At Shu Qing's house, his promised fiancé barges into his room, asking about a weekend outing. Noticing his empty room, she feels disappointed and curious about where he might be. Meanwhile, as Shu Qing leaves the building he was in, he finds three boys outside and questions what they are still doing there. From that moment on, the three boys start calling Shu Qing brother, hoping he would protect them in difficult situations. While informing them he will get medicine for the injured boys, Ziyang suddenly appears without warning. The protagonist then asks if she has any medicine to lend. Abruptly, she throws the medicine at him. He hands the medicine to the boys, who are deeply grateful. The girl decides to walk alone, but Shu Qing accompanies her, asking if she is upset. He tells her that if she wants, he can apologize to her, but not for himself. Ziyang responds that it's unnecessary, and that she knows her father doesn't have exemplary behavior. The boy acts as though he has been absolved by her remarks. Tang Ziyang admits that she knew he was strong, but didn't expect Shu Qing to be stronger than her. Defending himself, the protagonist explains that he simply knows how to scare people. Seeming to divert from the main topic, she asks if he has been practicing martial arts. In response, he is shocked that she isn't upset about what happened with her caretaker father. With a sad look, Tang Ziyang explains that she was rejected by her own boyfriend. She recalls the moment when he said that even if she knelt and begged, he wouldn't marry her. In an attempt to lighten the situation, he tells her that even if he doesn't marry her, he wants her to be his woman. Confused and wiping her tears, the girl asks how he can be so sure that she would marry him. Looking into her eyes, he asks, if she doesn't marry a man as good as him, who would she marry? Tang Ziyang questions if she can believe those words. He hesitates, doesn't answer, and she concludes that they wouldn't marry, meaning she had indeed been rejected. The protagonist tells her that even if they don't marry, they will stay together forever. As a doubt, she asks if he would marry someone else. He promises he wouldn't. While he is around, he says he would only make her a second wife. With this, a new argument starts, and he leaves, laughing. Suddenly startled, he stops and sees a woman sitting on the wall. Seeing that image, he remembers a master who wanted revenge. Not wanting to involve Tang Ziyang in this situation, he tells her he will go talk to an old friend and bids her farewell. The girl refuses the goodbye, and he explains that the Taoist aunt wanted revenge because of Yi. She stomps on his foot with all her strength and asks him not to die before she returns to help. As the girl runs off, the wound approaches Shu Qing. Without saying a word, she just looks at him and launches an initial attack. Thus, they begin a battle. Qing dodges and realizes that the women of the Li family are simply more powerful than those in the fairy world. The woman, with all her cunning, notices Tang Ziyang running and goes after her. The protagonist, seeing this, tries to stop her and chases after the woman. She grabs him by the neck and demands that he hand over the martial art he used or she will kill everyone. He responds that he has no issue with that and asks if she would like to see the other treasures he has. Satisfied and with a smile, she says that besides his life, she wants everything. He tries to change the subject, asking if she wants to learn the wind technique. She replies that she will make him wish he were dead. As a way to escape the situation, Shu Qing tells her that if she really wanted him, he wouldn't be able to resist. The woman laughs, saying that if she wanted him, he wouldn't even have the ability to resist. As she drags him away, she explains that he must die to console the spirits of her students. Arriving at an unknown place at sunset, the protagonist asks why she brought him there. The information he receives is that he will endorse suffering to have his techniques extracted directly from his fluids. Clearly frightened, he tries to convince her that she wouldn't succeed in that attempt. While the boy tries to start a casual conversation, she throws him far away, demonstrating her strength and power. Unexpectedly, Bala's Wang Chun appears, and he wonders if she had come to arrest him for killing the messenger. The blonde orders him to be handed over to her. The woman who was battling Shu Qing refuses and says it depends on the blonde's abilities. A fight begins. Chu Qing concludes that no matter who wins, he is going to be in trouble either way. Based on this belief, he attacks the first woman, throwing his sword into her back and piercing through her body. Chu Qing justifies his actions, explaining that she was certainly going to kill him, so he had no choice. Before she could defend herself, the woman fell dead. Bala observes the scene and cautiously waits for everything to calm down. While removing her robe, she comments that he was very cruel. That's when Chu Qing realizes it was his betrothed. She explains that she had only come to save him, but ended up discovering something extraordinary and asks if he had killed the purple-robed emissary. The protagonist admits that he indeed killed a purple-robed supervisor and asks if she had come to investigate that situation. Surprised, she replies that yes, but she never imagined the killer was under her own roof. Pointing a weapon at Chu Qing's chest, she asks why he killed her. As cunning as ever, the boy offers two options: either admit he killed in self-defense or explain that the fiancé had ordered him to commit the murder. Surprised, she doesn't understand why, despite opposing the marriage, he was now saying such things. The boy explains that he simply didn't want to die. Bursting into laughter, she asks about the possibility of booking a hotel room. Turning the tense situation into something more casual, the blonde shows a drawing she had found and asks where he got that information. He explains that he drew it himself, though she doesn't believe him. He insists you wouldn't need to lie to her. With a tone of curiosity and planning, she raises the idea that he might be capable of creating training methods. He denies it, saying it was just a prototype. That situation completely changed the way the girl viewed her future fiancé, and she admitted he might be capable of getting into the national university. She proposed a deal. She would help him resolve the Chuhin issue, and he would help cure her. In response, the protagonist says he doesn't know what is wrong with her body, and the blonde replies it would depend on his abilities to figure it out. If not, she would have to send him to the Ministry of Supervision. Thus, it was understood that curing her was possible, and that the Chuhin issue would be resolved. She then began explaining why the marriage needed to happen, but only on the condition that he give her a kiss to receive the information. Chu Qing asks for the information first, and adds that he actually found her beautiful. The blonde begins explaining that the Supervision Department is one of the main institutions, and has always been led by someone from the Kang family, the imperial family. The boy already suspects that his fiancée might also be someone important. The fiancée explains that she couldn't be empress, because there were certain rules for that. However, one of the families had broken this tradition, and that's why the marriage had to happen. Chu Qing understood that the situation was brought up out of convenience. The blonde then asks if he can really help. The boy's condition is that he wants wine bullets. After the agreement is denied, the protagonist takes a pill out of his pocket and explains that he could trade it for the bullets. The girl doesn't understand if the pill would cure her. He doesn't confirm, but promises to study away. The pill is called a tonic medicine and increases the user's strength by 30%. After taking it, she immediately feels the power of the medicine. Overwhelmed by the energy, she takes the wine and asks for 10 bullets in exchange. The boy is amazed by the bullet and realizes it's more potent than the one Chu Han used on him. The fiancé explains that this one is of a higher level, but the most powerful ones are level 5. Then they begin the treatment, starting with her face. She feels the sensation of change. Indeed, her face begins to transform, becoming slimmer, and he kisses her cheek. She sees herself in the mirror and is amazed, and they hug in celebration. Chu Xing explains that he can only work on the face, not the rest of the body. Statin. She feels a bit indignant about having to live with a normal face and a swollen body. He explains that this is not related to her training, but to her constitution, and if she continues like this, she will die. The fiancé is surprised by this information and proposes that he help her create an effective training method. The boy explains that training methods are not easy to create, and that it seems her spiritual root was taken from her a long time ago. Without appearing surprised by what they just heard, the protagonist comments that it was probably a member of her own family who took her spiritual root. Enraged by all this, she points a weapon at him and demands that he remain silent. In response, Chu Xing provokes her, saying that she probably wants revenge even if it costs her life. Angry with everything, she shoots the boy and orders him to leave. He warns her that she cannot push herself that way, or the treatment will lose its effect. Indeed, the blonde's face starts bleeding, and the treatment is undone. Chu Xing explains that the Chu family came after him just to force him into a marriage, and he realizes that the hatred between him and the family cannot be mediated. As a suggestion, the protagonist proposes that they work together, and he will do his best to help her. Bidding farewell, he warns her to stop practicing martial arts for now, as her life is truly at risk. With her face bloody, she seems not to believe that he would do his best to help her. Meanwhile, Tang Xin arrives running, accompanied by a woman. They notice that the two are no longer there, but that there are signs of a fight. Xian gets annoyed with Tang Xin, her second aunt, for making sarcastic remarks. Xian explains that she wasn't motivated because she had been forced to come there to defend her boyfriend and questions whether her niece is getting too attached to her low boyfriend. The girl's phone starts ringing. It's Chu Xing giving an update. He informs her that he has returned home and that they will see each other at school the next day. Tang Xin breathes a sigh of relief at the news, but her aunt insists on wanting to visit Chu Qing's house. During dinner at the protagonist's house, his mother asks if the fiancé isn't coming for dinner. The boy explains that she is probably on a plane returning to the imperial city. His parents don't quite understand the situation, but comment that the marriage is still on. The protagonist mentions that she doesn't intend to marry in the next year or two, and recounts what happened regarding the arranged marriage. His parents are left somewhat speechless, seeming as if they already knew about the situation. Meanwhile, Chu King thinks about how he will take revenge on that enemy family. On the plane returning to the imperial city, Gong Yu receives a list of people who had contact with Zui Yu. Upon examining the list, she realizes that the only close contact was Chu Xing, and reflects that their destinies are truly intertwined. At Chu King's house, he decides to chap on his sister's bed after Gong Yu had slept in her room. Upon opening the door, he notices a large hole and decides to call his sister to see her reaction. When the call starts, a man answers his sister's phone, leaving him confused about what is going on. While the sister is with another guy, the phone rings and she accidentally answers it. For fun, Chu Xing acts as if he is another boyfriend of hers. Xing Tao reacts completely disappointed. The sister, desperate, grabs the phone from her boyfriend and asks what her brother is doing. Bursting into laughter, he asks her to hand the phone back to him and explains that he is really her brother and was just joking. A sibling argument starts there, and she asks what important thing he had to say. As a wave of peas, his sister, the protagonist, asks if she wants him to transfer her money. With a load of happiness, she says yes, that he is the best brother she has. Checking his balance, he notices he has $360,000 Rai and wonders if this was paid by Yi Chengxi. The sister, concerned, says she cannot let this continue. What would other people think of her brother who had taken so much money from Yi Chengxi? And the boyfriend responds that if she is bullying him, he will do something about it. The girl explains that Chengxi sure is part of the Yi family. Meanwhile, at school, the three boys continue treating Chu Xing as their boss. The so-called boss wants the three to practice ancient martial arts. He explains that his training is different from regular training, and that he needs people training with him who are useful. They agree that Chu Xing would personally teach the three boys. Interrupting their conversation, a girl leaning against a fancy car asks if Chu Xing is bullying his classmates. With a welcoming expression, he says he's not that kind of person, and asks what she's doing there. Offering some milk tea and stating it wasn't spiked, she says she came looking for him. The boy refuses the drink and comments that it's not to his liking. At that moment, the girl approaches, trying to kiss him. Another person interrupts, asking if he is Chu Xing. Answering yes, the blonde security woman says the family head wants to see him. They soon realize it's the Tang family, and he goes to meet them in the car. Upon arriving, he asks if his aunt was looking for him. Inside the car, there's an elegantly dressed woman and Tang Xiang's father. Qiu Xing starts the conversation with a provocative tone, asking if the nanny was also part of the discussion. Qin Yu counters, once again stating that he is not a good match for Tang Xiang. In response, the woman says she is not his mother-in-law, and he realizes that this family truly looks down on him. Backing away, the protagonist asks what they wanted with him, besides calling him arrogant, stubborn, and reckless. The supposed mother-in-law compares being smart and deserving her daughter to the fishing town of Yongyang. Countering that statement, the protagonist says the family must have refined taste. Tensions rise between the two, and the conversation ends when Tang Ziyang shows up. The girl asks what her mother was doing there. She then asks why Chu Xing was also there. Without answering, he pulls her into a kiss, leaving both her mother and father speechless. Tang Xiang pulls away and gets into the car, saying it's late and that she should head home. Dragged by Yi Kangzi, he is thrown into the girl's car, where she asks who made her angry. Yi says she'll handle the situation herself, and that he should have thought about it before kissing Tang Xiang in front of her. Satisfied, she imposes that he must not be around other women in her presence. As he gets out of the car, she mentally affirms that he belongs only to her and no one else. On his way home, he receives an unexpected call from his sister. She asks him to take care of their parents and apologize for her. He doesn't understand what's happening. A woman takes the phone and gives him 30 minutes to get to the drunken dream building. If he's a second late, he'll only find a dead body. The scene shifts to on the floor. Chu Qing appears flying over the city while talking on the phone, asking if anyone knows the drunken dream building. The person replies that it's the most important gold trading warehouse and that its boss is a legendary woman named Meng Zui. Known for her unimaginable strength, She states she can't help Chu Qing. He responds that he doesn't need help, but emphasizes he must save his sister at all costs. Arriving at the building, he finds a luxurious structure and is directed to the 67th floor. Reaching the 67th floor, he finds a closed white door at the hallway. The protagonist heads to the location and upon arrival, finds his sister tied up and sitting on the floor. Seeing her brother, the girl pleads with him to flee, but she's interrupted by a kick from the woman accompanying her. Chu Qing retaliates, initiating a fight, but they are interrupted by a voice ordering them to stop. A woman with long hair and a veil over her face asks if he is Chu Qing. Stopping the fight, the boy replies that he is. His sister, desperate, begs him to stop talking and leave. With his hands, the protagonist casts a spell to put his sister to sleep, promising he will soon take her home. Chu Qing demands to know who the woman is and why she captured his sister. The woman introduces herself as Meng Zui, the owner of the place, and states that Chu Qing's sister worked as a bartender there. Already under stress, the boy asks what his sister had done to be beaten so much. In response, Meng says he should be grateful his sister is still alive. The protagonist declares that the only fate for those who mess with his family is death. Meng Zui launches a quick attack at Chu Qing, justifying it as a test to see if he is strong enough to make such claims. The boy realizes the woman's speed, but manages to dodge the strike. He takes a taunt at Medicine, but questions whether he will be able to defeat her. A battle ensues and Meng taunts the boy, questioning his ability to defend his sister. Upon taking the medicine, a massive explosion occurs, shocking the woman. He obtains the Sword of Death. Despite all the explosions and everyone's surprise, Meng appears through the smoke, questioning the protagonist's skills. Meng launches a strike capable of cracking the ground and comments that Chu Qing is just a child. The clever boy asks for a moment to talk. The woman questions what he wants to discuss. The protagonist asks what is happening there. The veiled woman informs him that her sister had slept with the wrong person and that she was there to handle the situation. Chu Qing asks her to let the sister go. Meng approaches, removes her veil, and reveals a slap mark on her face. Chu Qing is impressed that someone had the courage to hit her face like that. In response, the woman explains that Chu Xiao had slept with the Mayor Xingli's son, and because of that, she had received the slap. The protagonist asks what she wants in return. The woman demands 300 million to ransom her sister's body. As a strategy, the protagonist suggests that she let the sister go, and he would deal with the mayor. In an agreement, they decide that Chu Xiao must solve the money issue within 3 days. He throws a stone toward Meng so she can see the value of the object. Realizing the object's worth, she demands 20 spiritual exchanges in return for the boy's request. However, along with that deal, he must also spend the night at her house. After sealing the agreement, he lays his sister on a bed while Meng embraces him. Chu Qing jokes that she shouldn't ask for mercy. Unexpectedly, the woman picks him up in her arms. Unable to react, he merely thinks he will never be carried like a maiden. Arriving in the room, Chu Qing questions why she doesn't just kill him and take all the spiritual stones, since it would be simpler. Meng mentions that killing him might cost her main benefits in the future. She also comments that her predictions are quite accurate and could even be considered a talent. Chu Qing feels exhausted, questioning why he agreed to deal with this crazy woman. Meng appears with a syringe in her hand, asking if he is rested enough. Rising from the bed and striking with his yellow sword, he runs after her, attacking in response to the situation. Furious, he says he will take his sister, and if she disagrees, he might die, but he will kill her too. Overcome with anger, he leaves the room and takes his sister out of the building. Meng is fascinated, finding the protagonist's behavior extremely interesting. Arriving home, the two are approached by their father, who questions if they know what time it is and what happened to the sister's face. Chu Qing fabricates a story, saying the police had called to inform him that his sister had been kidnapped, but that she was fine. The father, confused, remarks that their family doesn't have money, so why would anyone kidnap her? The son counters, stating that many girls have been victims of kidnappings lately. Accidentally, the man mentions that something happened at their mother's company. Chu Qing asks what happened to the company, but the father prefers not to comment and tells him to shower and go to bed. Intrigued, he decides to make a call to try to find out what happened. The girl wonders if it was related to her, perhaps due to the debt involving the love between Chu Qing and Tang Xiang. Burdened by all these problems, he eventually succumbs to sleep. The next day, Chu Qing decides to visit his mother's company. It was his first time visiting. Interrupting a conversation at the reception, the protagonist asks where the general director's office is, as he is in a hurry to find her. The receptionist decides to take him to her. Along the way, several inconvenient conversations arise. That's when, in the middle of the corridor, Chu Qing encounters his mother. Seeing her son, the president asks why he is there. The secretary apologizes, saying he is a distant nephew, leaving Chu Qing's mother confused by the conversation. This situation sparks a complicated exchange, leading the president to question whether the secretary wants to become her daughter-in-law. The protagonist is shocked to see his mother angry and speaking in such a way. The president orders the secretary to go to the finance department to settle her dismissal. At the same time, the woman questions why her son is not in school. Inside a private room, the seated woman asks if it isn't a regular school day. Defending himself, Chu-Ching shows a paper with the words, "School Certificate," informing her that he has permission to be there. Stepping out of the playful mood, the mother questions what really happened with his sister, as she doesn't believe the story he told his father. The protagonist sits beside his mother and explains what actually occurred. The president, incredulous, questions the boy's courage for entering that kind of place. King tells his mother that he and his sisters are fine, while remembering that he'll have to deal with the remaining problems alone. Using his power, he licks water from a glass, shows his mother what he can do, and returns the water to the same glass. With this gesture, the protagonist wanted to show his mother that he was strong enough to protect himself and his family. The president, concerned, comments that she thought Yi Cheng-shi had changed her son. She didn't know there were other reasons. Continuing the conversation, Chu-Ching asks what happened to his mother's company, to which she responds that it's none of his business. At that very moment, Yi Cheng-shi unexpectedly opens the door, calling the president her mother-in-law. The woman allows her in, and Chu-Ching is left wondering what the girl is doing there. She defends herself by saying she heard the mother-in-law's company was in trouble and came to see if she could help. Meanwhile, in his mind, Chu-Ching wonders how he could find a weapon capable of using the Wang Chu bullet. The girl comments that it would be very easy to find a weapon, and the protagonist then asks her for help. Trying to end the conversation, he mentions that he'll go check if Hua needs anything. Yi Cheng-shi realizes he's trying to dismiss her, and with a fierce move, corners him, questioning why. She drags him into the women's restroom and says she's going to teach him a lesson to make him understand who she really is. Ching declines the invitation, saying he can't that day. In response, she warns him not to let her meet his other girlfriends, as she might end up killing them all. Standing close to him, she says she's giving him an early warning so he won't blame himself later. With a doubtful expression, he wonders how, despite being a girl, she wants to be the alpha in the relationship. The protagonist then sneaks away, using the excuse that he has to leave now. Angry, she forcefully grabs his shirt. Without mincing words, the brunette says it's strange because he can't even stay still and questions if he's fooling around with another woman. The boy remembers something he did with the blonde. His face gives him away, and his girlfriend becomes furious, realizing Chiu Feng really is. In the car, the boy reflects that, because of Yi Cheng-shi, he almost forgot his problems. His brother-in-law's house is on Suzaku Street. The people who live there are all powerful. Not only were the houses there impossible to acquire with just money, but a huge amount of also required. Upon arriving at the house at first glance, it seems peaceful and quiet, but he doesn't know how many cameras are hidden and feels a powerful force. It's impossible to meet the Xing family members directly, and he doesn't know all their abilities. He won't be able to infiltrate without proper preparation. If Chu Feng manages to enter, he'll first need to find his brother-in-law and see how he reacts. If he's like Mayor Xing Lai, it will be difficult, but if he truly loves the protagonist's sister, he'll have an ally to change the mayor's opinion of her. A car stops in front of him, and Tang Ziyang steps out. The boy gets out of the car and asks if she was looking for him and how she knew he'd be there. Annoyed, the girl asks why he hasn't been to school for 2 days. The protagonist responds that he was in a bad mood and needed to relax. Concerned but still upset, she asks if he needed 2 days to relax and if he's angry. Not understanding where she got that idea, the boy asks why he would be angry. In a soft tone, she says something happened with his mother's company, and it was the Tang family's fault. The last time her mother met him, she must have said unpleasant things, so she assumes he's upset with her. Placing his hand on Ziyang's cheek, the protagonist says she worries too much, and that his absence from school has nothing to do with her, but the fact that she cares about him makes him really happy. Blushing, she says she's his girlfriend, and is still afraid that when she's not paying attention, he'll get into trouble with others because he's sneaky. Then he seriously thinks that he is not her dog, and that she shouldn't be controlling him. The protagonist asks if she knows Zhu Yimeng. The pink-haired girl responds that there are masters in Jingmen. Zhu Yimeng is ranked second, and she controls the underground business in Jingmen. She then asks how he knows her. He replies that there is an influential person in Jingmen with that name, and asks who the other masters are. The girl answers that the first is Wei from the Xing family, then 2 people from the Tang family, her mother and aunt, 2 from the Li family, and finally 2 from the supervision department. He thinks it's a good thing he decided to just observe the place, or things could have gotten ugly. Hua is good at gathering information, and he needs her help. At the girl's house, he thanks her for solving his mother's company's problems. She's a cute girl, fresh from a bath and in her pajamas. In response to his gratitude, she says it was super easy and hugs his arm. Blushing and looking into his eyes, she says she just took a bath and offers for him to make a move on her. Ignoring her, the protagonist says he needs her help with something, Sometime later, while explaining what she should do, he concludes by saying that to keep his sister safe, he needs to break into the Jing family house that very night. The peach-haired girl warns him that the family is one of the richest and most powerful in Jingmen, so it won't be easy to get that kind of information, but she'll do her best to help him. She then asks what information about the Xing family he needs. As she types, he explains he needs the monitoring system for Suzaku Street, the Xing house alarm system, and an internal image of the house with a staff grid. Suddenly, a step is heard. He feels a terrifying presence behind him. Quickly drawing his sword, he points at the brunette. Lowering his weapon immediately, the boy asks why she is there. Very angry, she asks why she can't come and says she went to look for him at his mother-in-law's house, but not finding him there, assumed he was with the brunette and realized the lie. Both are in shock, and he even more so because he's been caught. Without any filter, Shuqing asks how she got in when he locked the door. Spinning the key, she responds that it's because she has the key. Irritated, he questions why she has the key. Embarrassed, the lowly admits she gave her the key. He walks toward the brunette, snatches the key from her hand, and throws it in the trash. The boy tells her not to come anymore, claiming she only enjoys bullying honest people. Pointing at him, she says he only knows how to protect the shorty and ends by saying she wants to see what he'll do when he needs her. Then she leaves. He looks at the girl and says she doesn't need to obey her next time. If she keeps bothering her, she can tell him. The cute girl thanks him and asks if it wouldn't be better for him to go after Sister Yi, since she seemed very angry. Shaking the girl slightly, he tells her to forget it and think more about herself, asking what else they can do. An explosion occurs at the door. It's the jealous girl armed breaking the door down. The protagonist becomes worried because now the crazy girl is after them with a weapon. He asks to talk calmly. Tired of his excuses, she pulls the trigger and the bullet flies toward them. The girl dodges and he runs after the maniac, quickly grabbing the gun. Extremely angry, the boy shouts, calling her an out-of-control lunatic, and asks if she really had the courage to shoot. She doesn't see any problem with shooting since they're in Jingmen. He yells, asking if she's happy trying to kill him with that gun. The response is absurd as she says she doesn't intend to kill him, but to make a hole in his private parts to stop him from seducing other women. Laughing, the brunette asks if he likes the gun and if it met his request efficiently. He realizes it's the perfect weapon for the level 3 Wang Xuan bullet he got from Gong Yu. Unfortunately, he has to thank her because it's exactly what he needed. The protagonist tells her to go home, but she says her car broke down and she'll have to sleep there that night. Seeing the brunette snuggle up to him, the jealous girl feels left out and sad. Immediately, the boy pushes her aside and tells her to watch TV in the living room because he and Hua have work to do. Irritated, she asks why she can't watch them work. The response is that it's almost exam season and the lowly will help him review his homework. She only agrees because she doesn't want to study math. In the room, the cute girl shows him where the cameras and alarms are, but warns that once he enters the Xing residence, she will help him handle those things. He thanks her. At that moment, the jealous one stands at the door and comments that it's too quiet, then barges in. Seeing the two at the computer, she awkwardly asks if they want a glass of water. He sees through her and tells her to leave. The girl keeps questioning what's going on between the two. She wants to return to check on them, but doesn't know what excuse to use. She looks at a delivery card to justify going back and tries opening the door only to realize it's locked. Pushing it open, she sees they are still at the computer. Holding boxes, she says she ordered skewers for the two of them to eat. Angry, simply picks her up and out, giving her a smack on the butt. Completely embarrassed, the girl asks how he had the audacity to spank her. He responds that if it's not enough, he'll give her another. Now outside, the protagonist thinks she's messing with him because there's nothing wrong with her car. Most of the time, he just tosses her into the back seat. With a suspicious look, he says there's nothing wrong with her car, then bids her farewell. Desperate, Yi grabs him by the shirt. The girl then grabs him and throws him inside. Seeing her sitting on his lap, she explains that he doesn't have time to play with her since he has things to resolve. Interrupting him, Yi moves the protagonist and kisses him. Thinking that she has to use him up so there's nothing left for the short one, she remains persistent. Embarrassed, the hero gently pushes her away. He then states that he is genuinely busy. With a seductive look, a girl asks if he's sure. Reversing roles, the hero grabs her wrist. Looking down at her, he calls her cheeky. He then decides to kiss her, declaring he's going to finish her off. After being intimate, both begin to get dressed. Enchanted, the girl asks the protagonist if he enjoyed it or if he's angry with her. He replies that he's not angry, and even if he were, it wouldn't be with her. While wondering if she could ever act graciously, she ruffles his hair affectionately. He says she feels like they're drifting further apart, and that the problem is he keeps fighting with other women, but still gets angry. Swatting her hand away, the protagonist thinks he doesn't want to be treated like a puppy, and that if anyone else did that, Yi would cut off their hand. Opening the car door, he says she should go home now, and that they'll see each other later. Annoyed, Yi asks if he's leaving right now. However, the boy glances back and begins to hesitate. He wonders if he should head to Hua right after being with Yi, and although it feels a bit wrong, he still needs to resolve the problem with his sister. Suddenly, Yi approaches the protagonist and smacks him on the butt, leaving him in total shock. Laughing, she says it's her revenge for his earlier smack and that she enjoyed doing it. She then tells him he's not like other men, and that if he were, he wouldn't have caught her attention since she likes men who play hard to get, adding that one day he'll be chasing after her. Chu realizes she resembles the popular girls from his world, and no matter how many flings she has, she won't end up in trouble. Walking away, he wonders if that's a good thing or if it's just wishful thinking. At that moment, Yi calls out to him. Smiling, she asks if he can't be a good boy. The boy responds by questioning if she could be a good girl and marry him. Yi answers that she has no problem with that, but asks if he's underage since it seems too early. The hero retorts by asking if what they just did in the car was childish, leaving her completely flustered. Straightforwardly, he asks what she wants as a wedding gift. With a love-struck expression, she says she wants the entire city of Jimin. Walking away, the hero replies that it might be possible and that she just needs to make sure to be a good girl. Embarrassed, Yi comments that he says all that without even kissing her. Later that night at the Lee family house, Hua asks the guard if he can see the small building to the left, the one where Jingli's son lives. She then explains that she has already hacked the cameras and security alarms, but the girl warns that he still needs to be careful regardless. Putting on the mask, the hero says not to worry as he has everything under control. Hiding, he thinks that it seems his sister and her future fiancé are on good terms. Therefore, he should go after him first. Waiting by the window, he ends up seeing something he didn't want to. Hiding again, he thinks that it must be Miss Xingyu, and judging by the situation, they are really enjoying themselves. At that moment, he concludes that Xiao must be upstairs. However, he notices something strange. Quickly, he climbs one of the trees. An elderly woman carrying plates of food is exuding some kind of mysterious energy. She then starts staring at one of the trees. Nervously, the hero grabs his walkie-talkie. Turning back, the elderly woman mutters to herself that no one seems to be there and comments that she must be getting more useless as she ages. She then states that the young master is barely eating, and if this continues, he might end up fainting. Chu realizes that even while hiding his presence, the old woman detected him and concludes that she must definitely be Xing Min's #1 master. Sometime later, the protagonist's future brother-in-law is lying on his bed. He's looking at a picture of his beloved on his phone. Spying on him, Chu realizes that the boy must be Xiao Tao, and judging by his expression, he's still in love with his sister. Quickly, he starts sneaking into the place. In front of a door, he uses his ability to open the handle. Without looking at the door, the boy says he doesn't want to eat anything and just wants to see Chu Xiao. However, he quickly realizes it's not his grandmother. Seeing the hero with a mask and weapons, he's utterly shocked. Before the boy can shout, the hero covers his mouth with one hand and tells him to stay quiet. He introduces himself as Chu Xing, younger brother of Chu Xiao. Concerned, the boy immediately asks how his sister is and if something has happened to her. Chu asks if he already knows about her situation. Voice trembling and in tears, the boy says it's his fault she's in trouble. Chu reassures him, telling him to calm down, and explains that his mother wanted to kill her, but he managed to save her. The boy admits again that it's all because of him. His mother tried to force him into marrying Tang Jian against his will. Shocked, Chu realizes that if the boy hadn't fallen for his sister, he would have ended up wearing a green hat. The boy then asks if Chu came to rescue him, saying he only needs a minute to pack before they leave. Chu tells him he's here to negotiate with his mother. The boy pessimistically says it won't work. She won't see him or listen. Chu replies that he'll try and asks him to make sure Master Xing doesn't ruin the plan. The boy insists that's impossible. He's stuck. Chu suggests he fake his death or cause some chaos to distract her for 30 minutes. The boy lights up at the idea, saying that's fine, and jokes that if it means meeting her, he'd even spend the night with her. Chu then jumps out of the bedroom window. Hearing the sound of running water, he looks to the side and starts forming a plan. The pink-haired woman steps out of the bath, wrapped in a towel, and immediately senses someone nearby. She comes face to face with a masked, armed man. Walking toward him with a seductive smile, she asks if he's a new arrival to the family and questions the mask. Getting close, she starts to remove it and leans in to kiss him, saying she likes it. Right after the kiss, the hero headbutts her hard, leaving a red mark and knocking her to the floor. He asks if she still likes his mask. Later, he's perched atop a tree while inside an older woman serves coffee as another reads. The maid approaches the woman Wei, saying the young master is trying to escape. Wei scoffs, calling it ridiculous, and wonders if he still doesn't understand. The elder woman says not to be upset, that the boy is just immature, and offers to check on him herself. The maid and elder woman head to his room. Smiling, Chu realizes this is his chance and knocks on the door. When the woman asks who's there, he steps in, masked and armed. She tells him to leave and says she'll pretend she saw nothing. He ignores her, sits in an armchair and says that since he's already here, why leave? She asks if he just saw Xiao Tao and comments it's no wonder the boy is making a scene. She then asks if he came for Chu Xiao. Chu says he's here to ask her blessing for his son to marry Chu Xiao. She dismisses the girl's family as insignificant and asks who he is and why he wants this marriage. He removes his mask and she recognizes him as Chu Qing, Chu Xiao's younger brother. She notes his sister must still be alive and calls Meng Jizui bold for disobeying her orders. Chu says Meng kept his sister alive, and if not for her, she'd have been the one hunted down. Maybe she deserves a lesson. Crossing her arms, the woman accuses him of using her. He insists he's only here to ask, saying he knows she's generous and asking her to forgive his sister. Adjusting her glasses, she asks if this is a threat, pointing out that his weapon is loaded with a level 3 wine chew bullet and questions if that makes him feel invincible. Realizing she's seen through him, Chu raises his weapon, but she moves with incredible speed, lunging at him. He's unable to dodge, is struck hard and thrown back, coughing blood as he gets up. He realizes Sheng Lei is no ordinary woman. She's a martial arts master who could defeat the so-called 10 great masters. Radiating power, she asks if he really thinks he can protect his sister with that weapon. Chu admits he was arrogant, but says winning or losing doesn't matter right now. She asks if he has another move and tells him to show it. Chu replies she hasn't met anyone like him in years. Looking at the bullet, she asks if it's the special Wang Chu round from the Gong family. Her expression changes as she asks if he's from that family. He says no, but he has a marriage contract with them. She demands proof. Chu remembers she once said she'd approve Tao and Chu's marriage if his family were as influential as the Tang. He produces something for her to examine. Relieved, Chu thinks of how Gongwei repaired the contract and returned it to him. She unrolls it and is visibly shocked. She asks if he's the grandson of Madame Q.